It's 9 o'clock. We're going to come into session of our combined work and regular session for June 30th, 2020. Please silence or shut off your cell phones. Commissioner Albertson will lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you,
Thank you
Commissioner.
for that, Brad.
Thank you very much.
Brings me back to life.
Yeah, that is very good.
Reminds me of when I'm doing it.
Yep. So, who do we have on the video?
I don't think anyone yet.
Nobody yet, okay.
Yeah, I just sent them a reminder.
Okay, additions, deletions,
I have 3 additions. I have an airport T hangar lease, Governor Brown's face covering requirement, and the Lake County's current declaration of emergency, and a deletion of the Paisley cleanup day support. They're gonna wait until things calm down with the coronavirus to schedule the event.
oh, very good, okay. So with that, does the board have any other additions or deletions that you'd like to add? I have none.
I had one, but I completely forgot what it was.
I think, well,
Seriously.
we're gonna run Jake through really fast right at the first, and then I think you
If
wanted,
it pops into my mind.
I thought you was going to do some clarification,
Oh, yeah,
is that what you're thinking?
that might have been on the meeting, you mean?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
do
okay, so let's get Jake so he can get to his next meeting, get it done, over with, and then we will go to you, and then we'll go to the building.
Yeah, do it however you want to do it, Chief.
Alright. Welcome, good morning, Jake.
Thank you very much.
So, we're, and like I said, this is combined, so decisions will be made, today.
So,
Or not.
before you is amended IGA between Lake County and the Oregon Department of Corrections. Due to COVID-19 and lack of funding to support our inmate welfare fund monies, which we use as our subsidy dollars, the Department of Corrections is reducing this funding by 50%. It doesn't only affect us here in Lake County, it affects counties statewide. Inmate welfare fund, for every top ramen, cup of noodles, toothbrush, toothpaste inmates buy, there's a little bit of overhead for that. So commissary, there's a little bit of overhead, it goes into a pot. Department of Corrections, I think, pulls back 65%, and whatever funds are left, that 35% comes to community corrections, and that's spread out statewide. So our 2-year amount was $2,551 for 2 years, so about $1,275 a fiscal year. So we're losing our second year of inmate welfare fund, which it's supposed to be geared towards subsidy. That's not the only subsidy dollars we budget. So if you look at the last page of your packet, my budget summary. This is the old budget summary that I attached, just so you can see right there, released subsidy fund, 2551. That's the inmate welfare fund. That's just chopped in half, so that would reduce my overall subsidy budget by $1,300. So, and we haven't expended very much of our subsidy dollars this fiscal year so far, which is godsend because depending on what happens with the legislature in July, we could see anywhere from 3 to 5 inmates released. They're going to be quarantined in the institution before they're released. However, once they hit the streets, they're still in the institution where COVID is present. So we may, I'm working with Public Health Director Judy Clark, we may have to quarantine them here in our community for 14 days, which means a hotel room for 14 days, and we will be providing the food for them as well. So any carryover subsidy dollars I can have is going to be huge.
Right. So you said you may have to quarantine 14 days in a motel room. Do you have a motel that is willing to do that?
Not yet.
Okay.
we're still working out the quirks, because we may not have to if they're doing an institution. It's the conversation Judy and I are kicking back and forth.
Okay.
So,
So Jake, since you work with the Department of Justice a lot, and we're gonna be talking about masks later. So if the masks work so well, why is the governor releasing inmates why can't she just give them a mask? Just a question. You don't have to answer.
I have to admit, you don't catch me flat-footed very often, Commissioner, but you just caught me flat-footed. I don't have an answer, to that.
Cause it'd be a lot cheaper just buying them a mask than 14 days of quarantine.
I thought maybe you spoke for Governor Brown when he asked that question.
Sorry, buddy.
No,
There's
it's
gonna be
okay.
lots of shots all over.
I think there's gonna be a lot of shots today.
And if masks work so well, the coastal communities, everybody should be wearing them, not just, certain folks. So, I don't have an answer for you, Commissioner.
So I would entertain a motion on this amendment number 1.
With that said, I'm asking the board to, allow me to sign the amended IGA 5849 as written, and adopt the updated budget summary, which is not the one that's attached.
So moved.
Oh, it is attached.
I'm just
It is attached.
gonna make a motion to approve it.
I think I
Motion's been made, and seconded to accept amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement number 5849. Any further?
So, what is the word when you second something but you're really not for it? There's a
You second
Reluctantly,
reluctant.
It's called you don't second.
it. So one thing I did leave off, the last page showed the original budget summary, the page before that shows the reduction.
Correct, yep, it's there.
So shows the reduction, so my subject budget went from 15,000 for 2 years to 13,724 for 2 years.
right. So I guess my follow-up question is, if we're gonna have this reduction to your subsidy fund, what's gonna happen when you have to quarantine these people? Are you going to be coming back before us and looking for additional dollars or anything, or are we going to be billing the state? Because we can definitely do that, but
With the information I'm getting from the Department of Corrections and from the legislature, our lobbyists, community corrections is gonna be held harmless this next year as far as reductions go from our grant and aid from the Department of Corrections. Department of Corrections on the hook for I think 6.5 million. They're gonna hold community corrections harmless. Moving forward, it's either gonna be 2 or 4% moving forward for community corrections. I think we can weather that storm a hell of a lot better than we could the 17%.
right.
So,
So
I won't be coming back before
who
the
said
board
that
unless.
they're holding you harmless?
What's that?
Who said that they're holding you harmless?
The legislature,
Yeah.
the rest of this year, because the governor's releasing people, so how can you supervise more with less? How
Correct.
can you do more with less?
Correct.
So they're
That's where I was
on this
going.
right now.
Yeah.
And then from what I understand, in July, the legislature's gonna come back together for another special session, try and shore up the budget.
So I think it'd be wise to document any impacts of COVID-19 in case there is reimbursement for COVID-19 related costs.
And again, this is the potential of having to quarantine and isolate some of these folks is if they decide to release 200 or so, or 1,000 inmates basically, opposed to the 57, or is it 57?
Yeah.
Correct? Yeah, 57 that they have right now. Because if they do that, then we are looking at inmates that are here at Warner Creek being released into the community that you will have responsibility for. Maybe not all of them, but some.
Not all of our inmates are housed right here due to conflicts, but yes, we'll have
Right.
anywhere from 3 to 5 back in the community.
You're released back to the community where you committed the crime.
Yeah, or where you're on supervision, why not?
Got it. Okay.
So that, and the maximum number with that would be 2,000, if the legislature pushes for 2,000. then I'll
Okay.
give it back.
All right.
But so far, we're just stuck at 57 or 60.
Yeah, we're only 57, but there has been a lot of whispers that they're going to be doing a lot more releases. So, okay.
Because mass work.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, Mark, There is a fire under you today. Did you want to do your update or do you want to wait a little bit?
No, I'll do it.
Okay,
So, I had Kevin come in last week, right?
Thursday
Was it last week or 2 weeks?
last week.
Because of the article that was pushed by OPB and also, Blue Mountain Eagle out of John Day did a letter, and Blue Mountain Eagle's article was a little closer to the truth of what happened. OPB totally focused on me having an illegal meeting. And for the record, I had a conversation with Commissioner Williams prior to going to that meeting, and for the fact of not creating an illegal meeting,
I decided not to go.
James stayed home. And so I was the only commissioner from Lake County there. We did not have a legal meeting. And I'm not responsible for the other counties, but I will speak for them in the part that I don't believe we had a legal meeting either. The whole purpose of the meeting was to stop the cultural oppression on rural communities. And all they could focus on was we had a legal meeting, and the whole subject of why we met was lost. But now we're seeing why I had that meeting. One mandate after another that I believe are completely illegal and against our constitutional rights and civil liberties. And we'll probably see more of it by the time it's over with. And that's pretty much, I'm gonna sum it up, Brad, keep it short.
I appreciate that. I wanted you to be able to clarify that in the public setting.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you. All right, so we're gonna move on to the,
And one more thing real quick. She will not, the lady from OPB will not give Kevin the, what is that,
The audio.
the audio for a reason. That's all I have to say.
thank you, sir. So, we have a draft agreement regarding payment of specific revenue stream for the service and retirement of specific debt for improvement on railroad infrastructure. I sent out an email 2 weeks ago to everybody to review this. Legal counsel reviewed it. This is, I'm going to say, the first of, we'll need at least another meeting to go over this. Ask Ann, Dave, commissioners, Melanie, and everybody to go over this agreement. This agreement is the repayment structure of a loan that we have approved for match for the Chrissy grant on the railroad. And so Goose Lake Rail is one that would be, is the operator that this agreement would be with to be able to service the debt over 20 or 25 years. So it's a big to do both ways. It's a big commitment, but it's huge for the infrastructure for the railroad. $5.1 million Chrissy grant. It's going to be reduced down to 4.9, I think, or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And so we matched the 4.9. It's almost a dollar for dollar. So that's right at a $10 million improvement onto the railroad. So
So Brad, will you tell us why we wanna have a $10 million improvement on the railroad, what it does for?
well, what it does for us is it allows us to be able to haul the product from Red Rock is one. It will continue to upgrade for the two operators we have now, whether Red Rock ever returns the bill or not. This is important to bring segments of the accepted status up to a level that is build up the speeds just a little bit. There's some areas that are walking speed or basically crawling almost.
So it'll go,
Safety issue.
won't it go from like 5 miles an hour to 12 miles an hour?
Accepted, I believe, and I'm not a railroad expert.
Jim Bailey.
Yes,
Hey, Jim.
thank you for calling in, Jim. We just started in on the draft of the thing. So I'm not an expert on the speeds, but I believe it is 10, 12. Dave, you know for sure.
I know 10 for sure.
Yeah, I think it might
So
just
you're
be
doubling your speed, which is hours on the line.
big, and especially in the areas that are way below the 10 now because of the condition of the line. So many improvements, safety and being able to haul the hazmat and everything, crossings and so on. So it's a huge to do. So that's sort of an overview. So you guys have a copy of this on page 1. Is the way I want to go over this. And Dave, you guys are welcome to come up if you want to come up to the front or not. Does anybody have any changes or recommendations on page 1?
Are we gonna make a decision on this today?
No, this is considered work session to go through this, to massage, plot the draft. The draft was put together by the operator, given to us to go over, and I'd like to add things or subtract things to make it work for everyone. So, Melanie, Toby, he wasn't calling in, he wasn't able to be here.
Oh.
But he got a hold of you and said he couldn't make the meeting, right?
No.
Okay,
I thought he was going to be here.
okay. So on page 1, I don't have any changes. Does anybody else have any changes?
Not me.
Okay. Page 2, on 1.2, I have to remember what I highlighted this for. And I think, Ann, this is probably a question for you. On invoices, it says, with each invoice, Goose shall provide reasonable supporting documentation to meet requirements of Chrissy Grant administrative rules. The only reason I marked that is the word reasonable. Is that acceptable? To have that in there. It says Goose shall provide reasonable supporting documentation. I just, maybe I'm getting nitpicky, but I think Chrissy Grant would be very specific. It wouldn't be reasonable, would be.
Yeah, they're just going to support, they have to provide supporting documents.
So I think we take out reasonable.
Yeah,
That's in section D.
No, 1.2 on page 2.
On invoices?
Yeah. Second sentence, with each invoice, Goose shall provide, it has reasonable supporting document, just put, scratch reasonable supporting documents. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, that's incorporated.
Okay.
You know, I think I would, Commissioner, I think I would put in necessary.
Okay, perfect. And then I don't have anything in myself until down 2.2 and new date, obviously. We'd have to implement a new date unless, without Toby here, I don't know that if he was gonna start that surcharge June 1st or not. I don't believe he did. And I think it would take effect as soon as the loan would absolutely start drawing down. So I believe that's a question for Toby. I need to get a hold of him.
Question.
Can we go back to 2.1?
Okay,
2.1?
Are you guys comfortable saying that Goose shall have no liability to Lake or any other person if such funds are insufficient for full repayment thereof? I was wondering if we could use their records and like have a base minimum or something, just so we kind of know what to expect.
you're touching on Melanie, literally $2.9 million question.
Which I think is very valid.
Well, Toby and I had some conversation, and that's one reason why we're having this in a work session is there has to be reasonable teeth put in this for both sides. We have to have the best surety we can. At the same time, the ability for Goose to depending on their ability to make the payment to not, we want,
Goose to be successful.
yes, yeah, I'm lost for the right words, but
We want Goose to be successful, yet protect the county's interests.
yeah, so,
Variable
I think,
variable funds.
Yeah.
I just think it'd be nice to know like what we should be expecting.
So just to, right now, our loan agreement with the state is what I would call a construction loan. It is only for like 36 months of the grant and that 2.9 drawdown to be complete. Once that's met, we will enter into a different loan agreement with the state that will be amortized over a period of time that we get to decide. And you know, we've been talking about 20 years. At that point in time, we will have a specific schedule of repayment. How I feel we're moving with this should be the same way. We should enter into some kind of construction loan agreement with Goose Lake Rail, you know, that might be a little bit vague as far as repayment schedules, but when we finalize the long-term loan with the state, we come back and revisit this agreement and actually have a payment schedule in there. I would feel better if we see a payment schedule and not just the track surcharge and hope that it meets our requirements with the state.
So what we need what you said in the contract stating that we want a statement. Contract or how we want to put it.
Somehow this, because you know, there's no repayment schedule in here at all.
Right.
And so I'm not very comfortable with that.
Mhm.
But we also don't have a repayment schedule with the state yet. So how do we force it here when we don't even have it with the state yet?
So, go ahead, Brandon.
no, go ahead.
No, so I'm just wondering if we could put some language in there when we receive the state's payment schedule, then that will make this one match that.
So you're touching exactly where I am. I get where Ann's going is we don't know what the payment schedule's gonna be, but this, what you said, has to reflect that whenever that payment schedule comes about, we will enter in, this will be amended to
Yeah.
show that payment schedule. But that we have to have that in this now.
I
because
would
of-
appreciate that, because that's kind of where, I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
We all want something in there that actually addresses when that payment schedule goes into act, and that we actually have to come back here.
Yeah.
And we have to make sure that's on paper.
Yeah.
Whatever the state.
So Jim, is that legit?
Which part of that you're talking about?
I mean, us wanting to have another meeting on the contract, to amend the contract once we have a payment schedule from the state.
As long as you, well, you know, I'm getting a weird echo whenever I talk.
That's weird.
There's a delay
Oh, okay.
of about 2 seconds and then I hear myself talking.
Okay. Plug your ears and just go for it.
Go to Salem to
Okay.
the psych ward.
So I'm just gonna talk and hope it all works out. I think as long as we put in here with regard to reimbursement that the contract will be amended to supply a repayment schedule once that's received from the state, then we can do that. But we need to actually say that in the contract that we are going to, everybody anticipates amending it to put in the repayment schedule.
That's good with me.
And the state is the one that sets that payment schedule. They're going to set it.
Once the final amount is known, what we've drawn down, and then we have options on payment terms as far as years.
We do have options though.
Mm-hmm. And then the other reason they can't provide a payment schedule yet either is this relies on a bond sale. So we don't know what the interest rate on the bond sale is yet. So that's why the state can't provide us a schedule quite yet. We're not there.
Got it.
So all we know is we have access to $2.9 million from the state for construction for about 36 months.
So 2.1 is talking about if the funds are insufficient, that they don't have to make a full repayment thereof. So it's referring to their surcharge and their number of cars going down not being enough to make the payment. So, I don't want to speak for Toby, but I think that's what he was capturing here is can't get blood out of a turnip. If for some reason their car numbers go way down, they can't make the payment. And that's what I believe, the way I read this. You shall have no liability to Lake or any other person if such funds are insufficient or full repayment thereof. And I think that's what he's trying to capture is the surcharge part of it. So I haven't reread far enough along to see if there's any other place about the schedule or anything. But
Well, let me ask this question. Is the whole arrangement to be that we're gonna get the matching funds, and a loan, we're gonna apply it to the track, and then Goose is gonna reimburse us, but if it turns out their business goes bad, then we don't get reimbursed and we're still on the hook for, repaying the loan?
absolutely,
Correct.
Yep. That's the gist.
Okay. Yeah, then you're gonna have to have a schedule for repayment because, oh, wow, I'm a little bothered by the fact that we could pay all the money out. I mean, this is your decision, but you're gonna be paying all the money out to improve the track, and then if they don't have the money to pay it back, then you've improved the track and you have to repay the money.
Yep.
Okay,
And their argument is, it's your track, it's your land, you own it.
yeah, no, I understand.
So just, we have to find the balance is what we have to do. We're improving our line. They're operating our line and as operators, they're able to charge a surcharge to repay our loan
Right.
for our property.
Okay,
Payment schedule, I get, we gotta be open-minded about this so many different ways. It's really quite a challenge.
We're putting a lot of resources into the rail. It could, I mean, it's one of those things, we're looking forward into the future, the rail could end up being a real nightmare for the county, or it could be one of its greatest assets. And I guess we have to put some capital into it and make sure that we preserve it the best we can. And that's kind of where we're at. And there's a lot of risk there.
Well,
I think we all identify it.
Yeah.
well, like speaking on that though, if we don't put the money in, it is gonna be a thorn.
Correct, right.
It's gonna be a trail.
That don't go there.
Don't-
I
you shouldn't have
fired
said that
that,
word.
I fired that shot.
Alright.
He got his mallet.
Okay, we're all in agreement that we need to have a schedule of repayment inserted there on 2.1.
Yeah.
So, I guess we need to put in there that when we have what the repayment schedule is, we will insert it in there. Does that cover it?
But based on like kinda hitting off what Mel said, is that they can't just tell us they can't repay it. They're gonna have some kind of base receipts
Right.
that prove that they can't repay it.
But you also have right under there where it goes down, the surcharge. It says the track maintenance surcharge should only include funds that are actually collected from Goose's customers upon request. I guess that's actually just maintenance surcharge. Goose shall provide an accounting of track maintenance surcharge funds collected. Okay, sorry, I actually thought I was reading something else. But, no, you're right. We can't, a lot of this is dependent on whether or not they can continue to ship cars. There's several other businesses and their business structures that are dependent on this, that the success of Goose Lake is dependent on.
The burden to pay it is basically comes off the shippers by a surcharge, and it's listed right there.
Yeah,
Wood
okay.
chips, $100 per car, biofuels, $5.50.
And if they're not shipping those cars, then they don't have the resources to make those payments. It's just that simple.
It is that simple. And so I guess if they have a banner year, it would be the question, does all that surcharge go straight towards repayment? Or is it held in a different account to make sure that the following year, because we budget each year, that they have enough to, you're either paying your debt down sooner by paying more that year, or else you keep a reserve to make sure if your business falls the next year, you're still able to cover your debt
But
structure.
maybe we should have a minimum and then the rest go into a reserve or something. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I get that. I also see whenever you're paying interest on 2.9 million or debt pay down.
Yeah.
Saves
That's
your
true, too.
interest.
So, yeah, that's true too, Brad.
It sort of comes back to you in the long run the sooner you pay your capital, your principal down, you get your interest down.
Are there any penalties on this if we were to pay more upfront and to pay extra down? Okay, I just wanted to make
That's-
sure
yeah,
that's,
There, my understanding with the state is there's no prepayment penalty.
okay. I just wanted to make sure. That was something I never had clarified, so.
Okay, so we're all in agreement. There has to be work done on a payment schedule on 2.1.
Well, at least language saying that we will come back and address that once we have that criteria from the state
Okay.
and get that payment structure from the state, or payment schedule, sorry.
Okay. Everybody good with that?
Yep.
And remember, this is drafted, and after today, if you have different thoughts, it's fine, we add them in. The other thing I had on 2.2 was, the track maintenance surcharge shall only include funds that are actually collected from Goose customers. Upon request, Goose shall provide an accounting of track maintenance surcharge funds collected. I put each month. I would like to have that go to him each month. Doesn't necessarily have to come to us.
So monthly updates basically, and
On that, and after a few years, you guys could look at that or whatever, but I don't know if upon request is, I think each month that we need to know.
There should
That
be
would
some kind of documentation come in with the payment that supports why they're paying what they're paying. So absolutely, they should send in something with their payment
Mhm.
on
Oh,
their
I'm good with
surcharge
And it's
cars.
gonna be a monthly payment or?
Well,
or is it
they made
quarterly?
it sound like that.
That's what that my indication is, but
Within 15 days of collecting the revenue, I think is when it's supposed to go each way.
Which
within 15 days of collecting revenue.
I think you
Which I think is a good idea, because if you did it like quarterly, the chances of spending that money on something else.
Yeah, no, it's right down in the next paragraph. Payment shall be made monthly, no later than the 15th or day of the month following the month in which Goose receives the track maintenance surcharge funds from its customers. Oh, well, that's actually just. I'm reading as I go here.
yeah, and I had on 2.3, the typo or whatever, it says, Goose shall pay all track maintenance or charge funds received from its customers to Goose. That should be to Lake, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
Correct.
No, and I think jumping back up before 2.3 back to 2.2, upon request, I think it's a good suggestion to say monthly. It's consistent with the next paragraph, and just stay on track with that, and I think it'd be good to continually get those updates from Goose Lake.
Anything else on page 2? Page 3. Very top, there's another that should, on first, the second sentence, it should say Goose instead of Lake. Goose shall have no further obligation to reimburse Lake for such payments. It has Lake there twice. So, I guess, trying to think this out.
Yeah, that last sentence, that doesn't quite follow, because it says Lake shall have no further obligation to reimburse Lake for
Yeah,
such payments.
yeah, it should say Goose, but my struggle is, if it's insufficient on the surcharge, this says that they have no further obligation.
Mm-hmm.
That's where if the surcharge comes over later, they should fulfill that month's obligation. And this isn't talking month, I don't know if it's talking
Well,
month or year.
The way I hear that, and of course Jim Bailey would have to read it, but if they come up short, that means they don't have to pay anything. That's the way I'm reading it for that particular month. Instead of, say if they come up $1,000 short, they pay up to that amount of their receipts. You see what I'm saying?
You could read it that way, absolutely. If track maintenance surcharge is insufficient to fully reimburse Lake for payments made under section 1, it should say Goose shall have no further obligation to reimburse Lake for such payments. Yeah, but you've been on the website of the track here, huh?
Yeah.
How you'd read that.
So it needs to state that.
Jim, can you fix that?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about how we would do it here. So if we say if the track maintenance surcharge is insufficient to fully reimburse Lake for payments made under section 1 in any 1 month, comma, Goose shall have no further obligation to reimburse Lake for such payments owed that month. We've got to tie this back into the payment schedule.
I don't have the document in front of me, I left it on my computer, but they don't limit themselves on how much of that surcharge they would forward to us though either, correct?
That's, your
Okay.
mind's going the same place as mine, yeah.
So they're allowing, some months may be high, some months might be low, but they don't put a limitation on the high end, correct?
Yeah, one of the things that I have to do when I look at any contract is, even if you trust the other side, what if they're not trustworthy? And one thing that they could do here would be to intentionally shift surcharges from 1 month to the next month. That, like at the end of the month, it's like, well, let's not collect it on the 31st because all of it's going to be sent to Lake County. Why don't we shift it? Let's wait to make the charge, assess the charge at 1 day, and then we'll come up short in this month, and we won't have to pay anything back.
Right.
That's exactly what I was meaning about the whole deal. Could you say something, payment has to meet a minimum of,
Oh, here's how we could address it. Here's how we could address it. It would be if the funds are insufficient for each quarter. We've addressed it by quarters of the year, and that way you're going to capture 3 months, and they really couldn't shift too much at the end of a quarter anyway, and then it's going to be there the next quarter. So if we say that if funds are insufficient for any 1 quarter of the year, then they're not, they have no further obligation for that quarter.
that means we'd lose out on a quarter instead of a month.
Well,
Well, no, you wouldn't, because they couldn't, unless they could shift their surcharges an entire quarter. See, that's what I'm trying to use, a mechanism that they can't shift. You know, it'd be one thing to shift it for a month, but to not assess surcharges for an entire quarter would be, well, they'd probably go out of business.
Well, and the other thing is there needs to be language that all surcharges will go to debt repayment. I'm trying to think at the end of the year, all surcharges that have been collected will be balanced at the end of the year. Not only the quarterly or the monthly, but should balance to all surcharges or something.
Yeah, if you did it as a year, a yearly basis, then what you basically say is they have to pay, and then at the end of the year, if there's any deficit, they will have no obligation to make up that deficit.
And that's where I really wanna know what that number is from the state. We have no knowledge quite yet what that number, that final yearly number is going to be to the state.
Yeah,
The best we can do is take the 2.9, amortize it over 20 years at the projected interest rate, we'll know roughly
Yeah, we can put in some approximate numbers requiring the amendment.
that part, but we will get there whenever we get finalized. We have to get this in place to get the dollars on the ground. I mean, as long as that'll be a whole nother, whenever we get that actual amortization schedule from the state, will be inserted into here.
Right.
Hopefully the number of cars going across the track will be the numbers that will pay the debt structure down sooner than later. That's what we're hoping.
Right.
So, but I do on that, I forget what number that one is, I don't have it at the top of the, that's 2.4, I guess it is. You're gonna work on getting the language there that will protect us, Jim?
yeah, it's gonna take a little bit of thought to figure that out, so yeah.
All right. And that's what we're doing today, is pulling together so all of us can try to get all our thoughts in it. So we'll move on from there.
When do we have to have this completed by, Brent?
Well,
What's the deadline on this? We really.
It'd be nice to have kind of general understanding what the repayments are going to be with Goose Lake Rail once we start drawing down dollars. We don't even have a notice to proceed yet from FRA.
Right.
So, I mean, I'd like to say the timeline on this is 6 weeks, but I don't know yet.
Yeah.
And then to be honest, and Jim heard us talk about this a little bit, but I guess I'm still crossing my fingers that we do not draw down $2.9 million from the state. I'm still very hopeful that the state comes through with infrastructure dollars that are even being talked about federally now for infrastructure rebuilding in America,
Mhm.
and that we get dollars that way, and it's not a loan, it matches the grant.
Right, and
So
that's a big conversation right now.
It's
going on.
huge right now, and I just think it would be nice to have our leadership in action and push something through like that instead of relying on this loan.
so we're tomorrow, July 1st.
Yep.
Red Rock is supposed to hopefully be somewhat operational in November. And daylight's going past us.
Yep.
And to
We need to have this in place.
put this amount of work on the rail line doesn't usually work during the winter. And so, we need to start getting some things in place, because I was hopeful we'd be putting Chrissy dollars on the ground last spring. So
So we can
we
give ourselves.
have time on this, yes, we do have time, but we gotta get, I guess, I hope there's infrastructure dollars come. We took our shot at the state legislature, we said good, and then that didn't happen. But how long long can we
So,
wait?
Well, that's why, you
so
know,
we can kind of give ourselves a time limit though, if you wanna like
I-
give it 2
I'm-
weeks or.
I would say we need to get this into the next stage of draft and get it to Toby for him to look at. Within the 30 days. Minimum, I think.
so Toby has not seen this yet, or,
Toby put this together.
okay, yeah, I was kind of under the impression that Toby had, so you're just wanting to have us go over it
I
and
have
then let Toby look at what our concerns were. and what
Yeah,
we want.
try to work out concerns both ways. I had a pretty direct conversation with Toby is that we have to put in within this some protection of the county. And natural, he would want to protect their business. and
Right,
everything.
absolutely,
Yeah,
but
so,
I think we can make this work, I suppose, so what are we doing on 2.4 at the very bottom of that on page 2, where it says Lake shall have no further obligation to reimburse Lake for such payments, because it seems like there was more there than just the fact that Lake was there twice.
yeah, well,
We have quite a question there.
yeah, Jim's he's looking at putting verbiage in there to make sure that they don't have a way to manipulate this agreement and not pay payment. Basically, make sure that all surcharges, even if that month it doesn't cover it, and the next month is some above and beyond, it all goes towards reimbursement. Now, will ours at the state be a yearly payment?
I'm not sure yet.
Not sure yet.
We
For
may
some reason, I
have
thought
flexibility
it
on
was.
that too, so I
Yeah.
I don't know.
For some reason, I thought it was, but I don't know for sure. So,
Okay. Well,
so, Jim, you'll work on that one?
Yep.
Okay, 2.5, no guarantees of payment indemnification. I think this one here we'll all have quite a bit of struggles with. Let me see here. Goose and its members, managers, officers, employees, agents, other representatives, each of their successors and signers do not guarantee personally or otherwise payment in any amount of Lake County here on after, or repayment of any loan amount borrowed by Lake from Business Oregon. I really got hung up on successors on that because the railroad operator could change in the length of time. And so I believe that this obligation should stay with whoever's operating the line for at least the amount of the surcharge. We can't make it be an obligation for the full loan amount, but if Goose decides to sell out or walk away, the successors have to take on that surcharge for par obligation. Jim, is that not doable if the board has to renegotiate another contract or
See, I'm thinking about taking out that entire sentence.
Yeah, I don't like that at all.
personally or.
I mean,
Wow.
I don't like that.
Yeah, the weird part about, we're not gonna hold their officers or employees, we couldn't anyway. So that doesn't make any, I would just take that whole sentence out.
okay, so that's
a
four line change.
See, because what it's really trying to say is that we're not, if the state were to go after Goose for repayment directly, that we would step in and say, well, no, wait a second, we're gonna defend them because we're the ones you're supposed to go after. I can't even imagine a situation in which the state could do that.
Well, I guess they're not yeah, I mean, they're not looking for protection from us per se, they're looking more for protection from business owners in the state from wanting to come back and collect on that. Yeah.
Yeah, a sentence like this says that if someone else says to Goose, you're liable to us for this loan amount, then we would step in and say, no,
Right,
we're the ones who are liable to the state.
right, and that's the second sentence.
But there's no way the state could make such a claim because Goose is not a party to the loan. So I just take a sentence out. I know what it's trying to do, but this isn't a situation where we're indemnifying them against something caused by their operation. So I would just take it out.
Is that the whole 2.5? Did you read that second? Is that there, Jim?
Well, wait a minute. Okay, what this is trying to say is that they're not stepping in and guaranteeing that they will repay the state if Lake cannot. And yeah, I guess I would take it out because they just don't have that obligation. There is no such, they're not a party to the loan, so
So you're
they
saying
couldn't be,
2.5 is take the whole thing out.
yeah, it doesn't do what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish.
Okay.
It's superfluous because they don't have any exposure, so.
Okay. So then moving on down to 3.1. Okay, by Lake shall maintain records of total amount paid by Lake under section 1 and the amount received by Lake from Goose under section 2. Lake shall provide an accounting of such amounts to Goose within 30 days following the end of each calendar quarter. And is that it? I'm questioning why they're getting the information to us and we're just telling them the information they gave us.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure if that means they're trying to figure out how much loan dollars we've actually drawn down and they want to see that amount in accounting, or if they're looking at how much we've paid back on the loan.
And maybe it is the loan amount because it's a record keeping outstanding balance.
Yeah, so that
Okay.
could be the drawdown of the loan dollars. It's through the grant construction process, there's going to be a lot of documentation back and forth between Lake and Goose.
Yeah.
FRA and the state on all of it, so
Because it's all reimbursable.
yes. It's going to be very necessary that there's a lot of documentation.
Well, I mean, it is kind of silly here because we're maintaining records, the amount paid by Lake under section 1 and the amount received by Lake from Goose, and then we're gonna turn around and tell Goose, okay, here's the record showing what you paid us.
Thank you, Jim. That's the way I did it too. So
Yeah.
I wasn't hearing voices like you were though. So,
I guess I would ask them, what are you trying to accomplish with this section? What do you want?
okay. All right, next 3.2,
That makes sense.
do we want quarter updates, monthly updates on that?
I think you'd want a monthly.
The same as
That's what I think too.
monthly? So
Yeah.
that needs to be added in there.
Yeah, you could take that sentence that's at the end of 3.1 and switch lake and goose, and that would fit there. So, actually, instead of each calendar quarter, each month. So, goose shall provide an accounting of such amounts to lake within 30 days following the end of each month.
Okay, so, just to clarify, Mr. Bailey, are you gonna clean this up? Melanie, are you? Because I'm sure not the one that's gonna cut and paste and do all this.
I'll do it. I'll do it right now.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to lose the essence of the meeting. All right.
Yep.
Does anybody have anything else through there? I'm all the way down to 4.4. Anybody else capture anything?
No, let's go 4.4.
Okay, dispute resolution, it says, arbitration in Portland, Oregon, that's not what I would put there. I thought generally any problems or any suits or anything we try to put in that would be heard within Lake County itself. Jim, is that fit for 4.4 or?
Yeah, you can put in there that the venue for the arbitration would be in Lake County or in Lakeview.
I think that would be appropriate.
But, if you can use the arbitration service of Portland, that's not a problem, but the venue for the arbitration should be in Lake County and not Lakeview.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that he put down there that it's Portland, Oregon is where the arbitrator would be from. And that would give me an insinuating that he was a good arbitrator in Portland, I guess. So you'll add that the arbitrator can come from wherever, I guess, but arbitration will happen in Lakeview. Is that what you're saying, Jim?
Yeah, if you don't want the arbitration service of Portland to be used, then yeah.
No, I don't think any of us have anything against the arbitration services in Portland, but it's, because quite honestly, I don't think any of us even know who they are. It's just a question of whether or not the arbitration takes place in Lake County. We're not trying to suggest one arbitrator over the other, but I suppose, am I correct? That's where you're at, Commissioner?
Yeah.
Okay, I can change that.
Okay, and so flip over to page 4, it mentions arbitration service of Portland and any mediator selected by the parties. I just want to make sure that if we went to arbitration or if we went to mediation, whoever the board is sitting here doesn't have to go to Portland.
Right, so what I've done is I've changed the first sentence to say, any claim arising out of this agreement, including tort claims, must be resolved by arbitration held in Lakeview in accordance with the rules of and by filing a claim with Arbitration Service of Portland, Inc.
Okay. So, anybody have anything else?
We could just say in Lake County. We could always do it up in Christmas Valley if you guys wanted to.
Says Lake County, I'm good with that. I sort of,
No?
I sort of like
Okay.
Fort Rock
Fort
Range.
Rock Grange would be perfect. I think Toby would love to get up there.
Yeah, that's sort of how it's.
Yeah,
Okay.
gentlemen, I'm sorry I'm joining late here.
Excellent. Hey, Toby, how are you?
Oh, I apologize. Things have been a little crazy this morning, but I deeply apologize for being late to the meeting here.
No worries. I shot you an email. I was wondering if you were gonna be able to join us.
So,
Yeah, I got myself triple booked here and
No
some stuff
worries.
ran over that I was in the middle of. Anyway, all right. Well, I apologize for joining late. I'm here for anything that I can be helpful with on this end.
yeah, not a problem, we just need your signature, sir.
Oh, that's easy enough.
We'll take it electronically.
small commitment.
That is the new trend, is to just do it electronically.
Yeah, so, Toby, thank you very much for calling in. We're sort of on a time schedule, so I'm not gonna go back over everything. Mr. Bailey's, going to bring it up to the second draft form, and it'll still be very much in draft form, and
Okay,
get that to you. And remember, it's draft because of all of us are going over it multiple times. And we want you to look at it also. And feel free to
okay,
call any one of our commissioners, or Ann, Dave, Berman, any of us, with questions. So
sounds good.
we're at 4.5 attorney fees. That again, Jim, is where I would like any disputes will be heard in Lake County Court.
Okay,
So,
All right.
With that, and Melanie, I know you beat this up a bunch. Did we miss any of the things that you jotted down? And Dave, or the board? So, Toby, I guess I am going to switch back a little bit. We're trying to make sure that, whenever we get to where we get the loan payment structure, we want to come back and we're going to have inserted in here that it will follow the payment structure. And we will add that, but at this time, we won't be able to do that pending, the state's, selling of the bonds and what that structure would be, and where the surcharge will go towards that repayment schedule. Do you have a problem with that being added later on?
we can, yeah, we do, we have a fairly good idea of what that structure is gonna be. It's just the exact numbers that we're waiting on.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep. So, anything else on this draft agreement?
I don't have anything else, Brett.
I guess it's pretty close to being on time, so we're going to, Jim, you'll get this, cleaned up, second draft form, get it to the Board of Commissioners, Melanie, Ann, Dave, and myself, and let us go over it, and then after that, we'll sort of nod to get that draft form to Toby from there. Does that sound appropriate?
Yep, I'll get it back to you within a week.
Okay, I was just gonna ask about a timeline, rough estimate, so about a week and I'll be looking for it. Or about a week and Jim will be sending it to you guys.
Yeah,
Within a week, yep.
yeah, and I would like for the board and us to review it, before the draft goes back to you, Toby, in case there is something glaring that we would like put in there, or whatever.
Okay,
So,
sounds like a plan. We'll look for the draft from you guys when it comes across. We'll go from there.
all right, thank you, and Jim, you're staying on for our next item, I believe, sir.
What is the next item?
We have Kristen Thompson here on the indigent funeral cost discussion is next.
Okay,
Okay, I'll get a bow out. Thank you guys.
See ya.
Thank you, Toby. Thank you, Toby. Okay, it's
Thanks, bye.
10:04. Kristen, please come up and welcome. Our next item is Kristen Thompson, and she has some discussion.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this morning. So I don't know if all of you had a chance to look at the attachments that I included. But I just wanted to come before you guys and kind of see if we can figure out what we're gonna do going forward. I have for the last several years since I've owned the funeral home, taken care of the indigent people, other than what the state would cover. But beginning June 1st, the state said they will no longer give anything other than $20, which is the filing fee for the death certificate essentially. So I just wanted to be able to come up with a plan of, as a county, how are we gonna take care of our people?
So, trying to figure this out, and the ORSs and everything, and so I guess true indigent people that pass away in Lake County that have no other relatives or no other contact or anything, are you seeing, what kind of problem are you seeing? Because your letter and everything encompasses many more things than what I think ORS goes
Yeah,
straight towards.
so what I guess what my challenge is that, so sometimes there is just truly indigent people where they have no next of kin. And when that happens, you know, I take a lot of time and a lot of due diligence trying to find their next of kin. Currently, my first email goes out to the State Lands Department looking for anyone. A sibling, a child, an estranged somebody, anybody. And I try to find that person. But then we also have situations sometimes where there is a next of kin, but they just say, I relinquish all my rights to that person. I don't have the means to care for them, we're estranged or whatever, and I don't want to. So we kind of have a twofold problem. And prior to now, when the state would pay, they would pay $500, which essentially kind of just paid the crematory. And I would try to dispose of them in the, most dignified but least costly way, which is cremation. So at least I could pay the crematory. But they, since they no longer do that. But in conjunction with that, like there was all these channels I would go through in order to get that $500. There was like an 8-page application. I would reach out to the university to see if they were eligible for donation for study. I reach out to the veterans to see if they're a veteran, to see if they'll cover. I look into any, if they're a member of any tribe, can the tribe cover? Like I try to do all of these things first to see if anybody can cover if this person's eligible for any kind of reimbursement. But then at some point, I have to take, they gotta be taken care of.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
I guess that's my,
And you have to do this all within like 5 days or something, right? I mean,
yeah, so I have to, before, when the state had an indigent kind of program, I had to make all of these contacts and do all of this kind of background hunting within 5 days. But then the state wanted me to hold them 10 days. And I did express to the state that, my cooler is the only cooler in the entire county for human remains. So sometimes I don't have the room to hold them 10 days. I will hold them as long as I can, but also I try to, because I was the one footing all the bill, to keep my costs down. If someone else was already going to the crematory, I would try to piggyback them on the same trip because the crematory is 100 miles in the other direction. So that has some expense in its own. Unfortunately, I find the majority of the people that I'm caring for in these situations come out of the north end of our county. There are some in just Lake County, Lakeview kind of proper too, but mostly they're coming out of the north end of the county. So on top of that, I have all this mileage to go get them.
and then if it's an unknown death or why, then you have to take them to Medford to get an autopsy.
Yeah, so
Explain that.
prior to this kind of happening, I had worked out something with the district attorney's office because if the medical examiner is involved and they require an autopsy, they have to go over to Central Point to the Oregon State Police office over there. So I would have to drive them over there, stay there, bring them back. So I worked out just kind of just a one lump sum figure so they could budget that easily and to cover kind of that expense because that is incurred by the district attorney's office. it's not really, even if there is family, I guess at that point, you know, when I'm getting my orders from the district attorney's office, I can't really build a family for what the district attorney's ordering.
So that's, we'd actually budget for that, I believe, through the medical examiner side of it
Yeah,
for suspicious deaths that are requested that way. So that's, we know we have that obligation
right.
and we budgeted for that.
And
over
I
the
think we
years.
budgeted for 5 a year, and I think so far has been adequate.
And so I guess, so that, I've been knowledge of that or whatever, trying to figure out county's obligations for indigent people. And you're a private business,
Right.
and what's our obligations compared to you being in your overhead in your business? And so then you have the ORSs here, and that should show where county or state obligations come in, and I didn't know if you were going above and beyond what the ORS, the state obligations, if you're trying to figure out something different, or because I believe, and Jim, you can correct me, that I believe under the ORSs, it's things that the state medical examiner for indigent people are the ones that we have to cover, but I'm not sure on that. And I'm not the best at reading ORSs and interpreting them. So, Kristen, I guess that's where I'm trying to figure between what you're talking about. I know there's added cost for travel and all these other things. Is that a business expense that you have to absorb? Or is that something by ORS that we're supposed to cover? And so trying to get down to what our obligation is to our taxpayers here by the ORS. So did I just make it more muddy or?
A little bit, I mean, I guess as a county, you guys would decide based upon these ORS statutes what you feel is your obligation. But I guess in defense of my business, I would feel like if you said our obligation is to cremate this person, I still have to get them over there, so someone has to pay for that transportation. You know, I still have to go 100 miles to go get them. You know, I mean, I guess I don't feel like I'm asking for you guys to pay for unnecessary things, in asking, I guess, the county to help with this, so I don't really know.
So Jim, how is it legal that the state is like free and clear from paying for this?
Well, it's interesting when you look at the ORSs because they all refer to the county's obligation when there's a criminal investigation. And the way the ORSs are written, it says that if no one claims the body during a criminal investigation, then the medical examiner will dispose of the body, and the county will pay for that out of funds that have been budgeted to pay for that. So it sounds as though if there are no funds budgeted for it, then the state doesn't have to do that. I mean, the county doesn't have to do that. So in other words, there are layers here. Number one is this deals with criminal investigations. That's where a county obligation could arise. If there's a criminal investigation and next of kin do not claim the body, then the ORSs say the county is responsible for disposal of the body. But it's only to pay for it out of funds allocated for that purpose in the county budget. So if we were to have allocated those funds and we ran out of those funds, then we wouldn't have to pay for anything. I guess the state would.
And so, Jim, I think the key thing there is it's through the medical examiner and through criminal investigation. If it goes beyond that, then there would be no reason why the average Joe couldn't say, well, I don't want to claim this person or whatever, and the county ended up paying for several different, expenses.
Well, I'm not so sure about that because it only says we're responsible when there's a criminal investigation. Now, I asked the sheriff, what do you do when there's a body and nobody claims it? And his response was, the medical examiner usually finds somebody. So, I don't know what to tell you there.
We have her right here.
I'm not the medical examiner, but I'm usually the one that has to find
You're the
somebody.
one that gets called, yeah,
Yeah,
so.
and I guess,
that's my question about that is, you really don't, I understand you're getting the call, but you don't have an obligation to go pick up that body. I understand your personal commitment to the field, but, there's no obligation that you incur a cost that you're liable to not have reimbursed.
so I guess that's kind of the confusion, or where I don't know. I do have an obligation to my county, I wanna serve my county. But when the sheriff calls me and there's no other funeral home in the county, what then?
Yeah.
I mean, and these are all the cases usually that the sheriff's department or dispatch is calling me. It's not a family calls me and then they say, we don't wanna take care of them. It's, we found so-and-so, we don't know how many days they've been there.
Right.
Come get them.
And it's not necessary,
And it's not like a criminal investigation, they just passed away in their home,
and they have no next of kin.
they're excluded from
Right.
kind of the world, chose to live out in the vast Lake County privately, and they just call me to come get them, and I don't mind coming and getting them. I just can't afford to keep doing it all
Well,
myself.
like you stated, in 2019, you lost $11,632.
Mhm.
So if she sent that bill to the state, would they be liable for that, Jim? If they weren't criminal?
Yeah. Well, this is the problem with the way the law is written. And I can tell you what it says, okay? It says the medical examiner investigates the death. If they can't find a friend or relative within 5 days of the date of death, then the medical examiners shall dispose of the body. And then they file a copy of their report with the county commissioners, and here's what it says. The Board of County Commissioners shall pay such expenses or any portion thereof as may be available from county funds annually budgeted for this purpose. So if you don't budget for it, then you don't make any payments. Or if you run out of what you budgeted for, you don't make any payments. And I think the problem we have here is that, I'm sorry, ma'am, I don't remember your name. You're getting a call, you're responding to it in a professional manner, but unfortunately you're providing a service without any promise of being reimbursed by anybody. And that's kind of the problem that I think, and I'm not your lawyer, so I'm not giving you advice. The problem is that you're doing something without a promise of being reimbursed. And then you're turning around and everyone is looking at you saying, well, why do I have to pay you? That's where the problem is.
And
The county's not saying we're gonna pay, the state's not saying we're gonna pay, the next of kin is not saying we're gonna pay, and you're providing a necessary service, and you're the one left holding the bag.
the body.
I really didn't want to say that.
That was me, Jim, I'm sorry, I had to go. Real quick, Jim, I I think we need to have some more discussion on this because you're right, and that's initially last night and yesterday when I was reading this, that's kind of where I was. But if I could go back up to number 2 on that on ORS 146121 on this disposition of body. Okay, so medical examiner investigates the death of a person whose body is not claimed by a friend or relative within 5 days of the date of death. The sheriff, or in counties having a population of 400,000 or more, which we definitely don't meet that. The medical examiner shall dispose of the body according to the provisions of ORS 97.170. And so I went and pulled up that because it actually deals specifically with the disposition of with the disposal of unclaimed body and deceased person. Because I'm really trying to find what they classify as an indigent person or a deceased body. And so I went down through that.
I can tell you what a deceased body is.
Well, I'm sure you could. So well, it's not really a page. It's item number 5. Is it item number 1, 2, 3, 4? It's in number 3 actually, subsection C. It states if a deceased person is an indigent person, the board shall reimburse the funeral establishment for the cost of disposal under subsection 5. And there's a whole subsection there as well on what the board's requirements are. And so, but this is literally the longest ORS that I came across when I was reading this whole thing. And there's a ton of things in there. And I'd like to have some time to maybe go over that. Absolutely. Because I'm still struggling with what the actual definition of an indigent person is. And it's not just those that are involved in a criminal investigation.
So that's the same ORS that the Oregon funeral director sent me.
Mm-hmm.
Oregon Mortuary and Cemetery
Yeah,
Board.
that guy.
And because they don't say the Board of County Commissioners in here, and I haven't been able to find that, they just say the board shall reimburse the funeral establishment for the cost of disposal under subsection.
So is that the Oregon Cemetery Board?
Good
Well,
question.
That's my question.
Well, and I
What
think,
board
you
are
know,
they
in
talking
larger populated areas like it describes here, you know, they have a coroner's office, which we don't have here. So the medical examiner actually works out of that coroner's office, which fits in better with the verbiage of this law, because then if in 5 days there's no one to claim the body, friend, relative, or whatever, and it's not a criminal case,
Right.
they just, at the coroner's office, cremate and dispose of the body in a proper manner. We don't have that here because we don't even have a coroner's office here. Like my funeral home kind of acts as the coroner's office. When I get somebody and the medical examiner has to come do an examination, they come to my funeral home. So again, you know, we have to kind of think outside the box because we're a very large county, we're kind of isolated, we don't have some of the things that other counties have that are very populated, like the coroner's office.
Mm-hmm. And we have a portion of our population that come out to very remote areas like this.
Right.
They don't have any family, they don't have any friends or relatives or anything that are going to take care of them, and they also don't typically have insurance to pay for their funeral costs when our deputies find them at home. And so that's kind of one of the issues. I really think we need to bring this forward to our legislators, because if this is something that,
Maybe, Jim, so do you think you can dive into that and see what the word board is and what board is liable?
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm looking at the statute here and they capitalize the State Mortuary and Cemetery Board,
right,
but then when they get down to this last section, it's just as required by the board. If it had been capitalized, I'd say, oh, it's clearly referring to the State Mortuary and Cemetery Board, but this makes it a little unclear.
right.
But yeah, I will take a look at it and see if I can find out an answer.
Because this is the section that I'm kind of curious about, because this is not pertaining to a a mysterious death or investigation. This is unclaimed deceased indigent person. And so this is the one that we're really looking at, and I'd like some clarification on what this ORS is actually putting on the county, if they are in fact putting a financial obligation on the county. And I think that if she's only getting paid $20 by the state to take care of these things, I think that's something that we need to fix, and we need to go back and have some discussion with our legislators on. There's been a lot of things that have slipped through and slipped by us in the last couple sessions, and I'd like to revisit this, so.
Reading through it, I haven't read all.
I would
subsection.
I don't mean to sound weird or anything, but this was a very fascinating read to me late last night, so.
And if I could just say that, you know, I will still always work hard for our county, I will still do what is required, you know, morally and, you know, and do the best. And I'm not going to just willy-nilly, you know, say, oh, someone doesn't wanna keep their person, you guys need to pay the bill. You know, I don't mind jumping through all the hoops and calling all the agencies and trying to find somebody, and I will continue to do that. I will continue to work hard for you guys and for my county and for the people of my county. I just thought it was time that we
Well,
talk
what?
about this.
no private business should have to pay $11,000, almost $12,000 out of their own pocket for a state mandate.
Well,
And
since I've owned the
so-
funeral home, it's been almost 25,000 I've had to pay, and that doesn't even count what the church has covered that's in the north end of our county, that they have paid for on top of what I have taken care of also.
Well, yeah, so I would say through the ORS and everything, there's going to become some clarity to this, especially where that it states here counties, population over 400,000.
Yep.
There's some place within there that there's been, ORS in subsections that are going to address smaller counties.
Yes,
So we'll take it under advisement, do some research,
Okay.
and,
really appreciate you bringing this to us.
Well, I appreciate you guys just being open to look at it. It's helpful.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you.
thank you. All right, Mr. Knowles. Maybe I'll look at this again. Hey, he's been way next.
I see that.
This is easy cheesy compared to what you just dealt with, so. So,
Just a second, Mr. Bailey, I don't believe that we need Mr. Bailey on for anything else.
Can I ask Mr. Bailey a question real quick? Mr.
Yeah.
Bailey?
How
So
come Kate
you're
Brown?
you're gonna hate me as usual, but so with this face mask mandate coming up, how is that legal with our 10th Amendment rights?
Remember, the press is here.
And
I'll
on
have
top
to
of
do some
that,
research and get back to you.
alright, and then the second part of that is, what if we don't follow that mandate as a county? Just hypothetically, I'm asking for a friend.
State sues you.
So wait, are we talking about the Greater Idaho Plan again?
Well, maybe later, but this one is that if we don't follow the
Executive.
executive
If it comes down to executive.
emergency order,
Yeah.
and I'm asking for a friend, so.
I can't give legal advice to your friend.
Yeah, go ahead and send it to my friend, the same email that you used last time I asked you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the lawyer's best answer, and that is, I'll have to do some research and get back to you.
All right, thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thank you, if we need
All right,
you, we'll call
bye.
you back, Jim. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Close bail.
Bye-bye.
All right, Mr. Knoll, sorry, this one.
That's all right.
Sorry, Dave. Let Jim get to his.
I'd like to see us get through that also.
Yeah.
So mine's easy cheesy. We have a web presence. It's called the PAT system. It's where taxpayers, realtors, insurance people can go in and get information on properties and values and ownership and mapping and all kinds of things. And it's a service that we're getting provided to from Lane County. We have an existing IGA. We've been operating this way for many, many years, and it's up for renewal for July 1. And they were a little bit behind on getting them out to us this year. We just got them last week. So I'm asking you guys to act and renew this IGA for another year. As an assessor's office, I am personally looking to change vendors in the future to upgrade and enhance what we have out there. But that has not occurred yet. The other thing is different line item is Lane County has been providing a GIS service for us. When we discontinued our software providing GIS, we also quit our software IGA. We also quit our GIS IGA. Well, they failed to turn it off and they've been continuing service for 2 years. They just come to the fact that they've done that. They brought before me an IGA going forward of additional $1,800 annually plus possibilities of other costs go with that. And after reviewing it with commissioners and the users of it, we're determining it's redundant. We already have this service provided in this PATS program, and we're changing our webpage to point and direct taxpayers to that mapping service that's in there. So we are not renewing our IGA for the GIS, only for the PATS system. And we have discontinued the IGA for our software provider, which has been a significant savings for the county. And as an assessor, I feel that that GIS IGA that we're letting go is redundant and not necessary. So that's my request, is to renew the IGA just for the PAT system only, which is what I brought before you.
Entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the assessor's PATS IGA, is that how you?
Correct.
For fiscal impact of $6,180.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept intergovernmental agreement, which is for the PAT system. Any further, and the amount of $6,180. Any further discussion?
Yes. So I guess how long are we going to be continuing this?
So this is a budgeted item we've been continuing, and the amount has not changed for many years, so that's the same thing, so it's just nothing out of the ordinary.
But we have no intention of changing this. in the
And
future.
so what it boils down to is, we've been operating on the same system for almost 8 years, and there's been 0 enhancements,
Mhm.
okay? And so the technology on it is getting antiquated, and we're looking at another vendor to take this to the next level, to provide more information. And this particular program has taken a tremendous amount of workload out of our office. And so, like a realtor doing an appraisal for a property, from out of the area, they don't have to travel with you. They get the data from our website to move forward for recent sales and values and so on. Insurance companies out of area wanting to insure values, they can get the data for the type of home, type of heat, all that kind of information. It's a huge item, it's a great tool, and it works well. It's updated every day. So when we have a deed comes through the following day, the new ownership comes across. It's a great thing. However, there's a lot more aspects that it could do for us and help us. And Lane County is slowly getting out of the small county company. They used to have a pool of 6, now they're down to 3.
We're still in it.
Huh?
And we're still in it.
And we're still in it. So Crook, Gillum, and ourselves are the only 3 counties still in. And it's just a scenario where it's going to slowly die. And I'm trying to find another provider that could do a great job for us and not break the bank.
Well, I suppose, the work that they've done for us has decreased. That the amount of stuff that we've been getting out of Lane County, and it's down to about $500 a month from what I'm seeing here. So I just wanna make sure that $500 a month, that $6,000 a year is still, you're saying that it's a huge advantage to your office. But then at the same time, it seems like they're doing less and less work and they're not wanting to be in this business
We used to send
anymore,
them
so.
$40,000 annually,
Right.
and now it's down to $6,000, and they used to provide a service on 3 different levels,
Mhm.
and now we're down to the single level.
Yeah.
And that service has not changed. They're still providing the same amount of service,
Okay.
only they're not doing the other items. So do you not think that they're doing less on the PAT system? The only thing that I'm dissatisfied is they're not enhancing it or advancing it. It's like our old software program. They're maintaining it, but they're no longer making it any better or updating it.
Got it, okay.
And we've experienced a sluggishness with it, and it's being slow on the server and not as quick, and and so on. So it's becoming a weaker and weaker link, and we need to protect and safeguard ourselves to keep that moving forward.
Okay.
But I'll bring that to you as that develops. There's a good possibility this fall we may have an opportunity to make a change. And Lane County is aware that we're shopping and looking, and they're willing to let us slip out at that time.
That was my next question. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Any further? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank
Motion
you guys.
carried.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. And Crown Right, small business grant support, action consideration.
So to bring everybody up to date, as you know, SCOED received their state contract to allow small business grant applications, which allows funding for people shut down by COVID executive orders. And there's a long list of kind of priority businesses that meet that first criteria. What I'm proposing, because that fund amount, as you know, is a little bit limited. Our match to SCOED's program is $10,000. What I'm proposing is that after that application deadline comes, which is July 15th, if there are any Lake County businesses that she received applications on that are left out of this round of funding to limitations of funds, that we look at funding that on our own through our business development loan program and get reimbursed through coronavirus relief funds that will still continue to be funded through the state. The US Treasury Guidance on allowable uses of those dollars is economic support of small businesses. So not only would our $10,000 match be an allowable use to be reimbursed on those dollars, but anything above that for our own Lake County businesses that we support.
Even the $10,000 match.
I believe so, the way I'm reading that.
So on that, I got an email from Betty last week that stated that if anybody had received PPP or I don't remember the other acronym,
Oh, the Small Business Association.
yeah,
Well,
any of those,
Mhm.
that they don't qualify for this one. And
Right.
so I had I didn't realize that at the time. So as people called me and I sent them to Betty, some of them had already,
Received assistance.
so.
As of yesterday, she had received 5 applications from Lake County. But I asked for a listing, who and how much, but she hasn't got back to me yet. And again, they have until July 15th, but you're right, if they've received federal assistance already through different programs, they're not eligible for these dollars. The Paycheck Protection Program required that businesses had employees. So we have a lot of sole proprietors that, did not have employees.
So whenever we agreed to do this, we had put priority that those that were harmed, in our views, the worst, were mandatory to shut down would be first in line. Does that still hold true?
Yes. The executive order is pretty clear. In fact, I think I forwarded that listing of businesses to all of you that Betty's using as the criteria.
So you're not asking for a decision today. You're making a suggestion that if we get an influx of quite a few applicants and they don't make the cut,
Yep.
that we can consider them through the door.
And we take that on.
So it'll just require more communication with Betty Riley on, because some applications are coming to me that I'm forwarding on, some are going directly to her. We'll just kind of keep that communication open and see where we're at with July 15th.
So are you recommending that if we did, call it, I hate to say phase two,
I finished going through phases when I was a teenager.
if we done the second schedule of events, let's say, would we use the same criteria and same guidelines as what we're going through right now? Have we done it?
It's kind of nice to have that criteria in place. It's pretty simplified as far as how many employees, the amount that's allowable, or documentation required to get a higher amount. I think, and I'm not even sure if that criteria started just at the state level, or if that came down from the federal government too. I'm not sure where that criteria started, but I would use it.
And interested. That many applicants.
Right, we'll just
Alright.
see.
And I think, oh, go ahead.
So the businesses that I reached out to that, met that, who was impacted pretty strongly here to close down on that executive order, everyone was so happy for the information. So I'm worried that we're not getting it out to everybody, so please
just keep
forward it.
Getting it to everyone.
Yes. And then, there might be businesses that apply that according to Betty, may not meet that criteria, so
Right.
then we'll work through that. But I want people to apply and be told no instead of not applying at all.
Right, and if we have forwarded it on to anyone, follow back up with them and say, hey, did you get my email? Did you get my stuff?
So I've seen a few posts on Facebook. I was looking at the Chamber of Commerce's closed business list. I don't know if Christmas Valley Chamber did a closed business list also.
I have not seen that, no.
Okay.
No, Jessica did it for them.
Are there other avenues that you'd like me to take or to make sure we push this out?
I don't know which avenue that you didn't hit though.
I mean, I go up to the restaurants on the weekend, I talk to them directly.
Okay.
And talk to some of the other businesses that were forced to close, and try and find as many as I possibly can that are competitive.
So with keeping that criteria the same, is there anybody that might fall through the cracks where they don't meet the criteria on one side and they can't get a loan on another side or however, and so they don't qualify, but there's for some other reason? And so is that limiting us to helping?
I would say at that point in time, if we hear from an organization or a business that has that issue, that our community development loan dollars is at your discretion.
Mhm.
So if we have someone that really truly falls through all of those cracks and doesn't have assistance in any other way, then you guys would have a decision on that discretionary program.
And we have the press here today, so we're gonna throw some things at Kevin here. and just make-
Literal things? No.
You're lightweight, don't worry. So, no, if you could help us maybe get that out to the community, it's gonna be tight, because, we need to get these applications in by the 15th.
Yes.
But, we'd like to,
Wait, there's gonna be a release that we got from SCOA that'll be in tomorrow's edition,
yeah.
Okay.
explaining
And
this.
some of those little sheets and stuff that are in a lot of the businesses and stuff, there could be something in that pertaining, because I know those typically come out a little earlier. Little snippets of news, and it'd be nice to have some of those highlights. to Lake County in there, so. Thank you, appreciate anything you do on that, Kevin.
Alright, next item, and general fund transfers 1920 beginning fund balance.
Yes. Here's the latest and greatest cash flow worksheet, and this is up to date through yesterday, so I'll talk about this in a bit more detail. So let's start at the top with our revenues. You'll see that I did change the June column to actuals. We just have today to bring in any more revenue. Those tax dollars are actuals. That is what we received. I did the tax turnover yesterday. So I want to point out the year-end total for current year taxes. We budgeted $3.4 million. We received 3.379. So a deficit according to the budget of 25,000. Again, that impact is a lot of Ruby pipeline valuation. So we got notice just a couple weeks ago that valuation went down again. And so next year's prediction on current year taxes is flat still. Another highlight moving down the revenues is I'll say the other state resources there. If you recall, a couple of weeks ago, I was hopeful for $40,000 in Oregon emergency management funding for Daniel Tagg's grant position there. Did not receive that, have no notification if we'll see it. I mean, it may show up in the account, but I'm not holding my breath on that one.
Okay.
But what we did receive was the $18,000 in our coronavirus relief fund from the state. So that's why that figure there is $22,919. We also have other state dollars we receive monthly.
So back to the dollars. Is there a chance they would come in the next budget year
Yeah.
for Daniel?
They will.
Okay.
They will.
So, not getting off, I'm trying to get off track. How much short was our tilt?
Our PILT, I'm gonna talk about that next. That's the actual figure. That's exactly what we received. We got that money in our bank yesterday. Whew! It's 1,245,691. I anticipated 1.238. So it's $9,000 more than what I anticipated. And again, that is our population cap amount.
Cause I know a lot of counties come up short and we had talked about why, because we got overpaid last year, correct? And their counties didn't take that. Evidently, they did communicate with their treasurer and they had several $100,000 in crisis.
Yes. Yeah, and that all stems from the Secure Rural Schools Act reauthorization that kicked out federal money late in the fiscal year. Their PILT payment did not include a prior federal payment because it didn't meet the timeline. So they got a really high PILT payment, and then the Secure Rural Schools caught up. This year their PILT payment should have gone down significantly. Not significantly, but that kind of difference there. So our collected revenues, I'm gonna get back to this, our collected revenues for the fiscal year 1920 right now stand at about 6.2 million, 6.271. Looking at expenditures,
So back up to on the transfers from community corrections, how come it's down $28,791?
that was the DA funded position.
Okay.
And so we only have through December 31st to spend that money, and we did. We spent what was allowed.
Right.
We
We had to
didn't
give
hire
that
that
money
DA
back.
as fast as we could have to expend all of it, so we had to send the money that wasn't expended back.
Okay,
That
sounds
clarifies that.
And then, real quick on the other state resources, on the OEM dollars, how much was it that we were expecting for Daniel?
Well, we truly have not received anything for the 1920 fiscal year. We get about $4,000 a month from them, so it's
So-
about 48,000 that we're out now.
Okay, so,
They will catch that up. So next year, it's very likely that we'll get hopefully a year and a half
Yeah.
worth of funding next year.
right,
Is that due to not getting paperwork in for reimbursement possibly?
No, actually, we send that in monthly. I'm involved in that process. It's OEM has had a lot of turnover, and then they got hit with a major emergency.
They've had 5 directors in 4 years or
Yeah.
6 years.
Yeah.
Something like that, so.
So they,
And they just lost their other one 2 weeks ago.
yeah, it was a big outlook. I guess where I'm at though on that is that 48,000, if I'm reading this correctly on that last column, right, it's looking at a negative 72,000. So what are some of the other dollars that didn't come in or we had to get back or?
We also have, the sheriff has OHV law enforcement dollars, off highway vehicle law enforcement. We have not caught up or billed as much as we could have on that program. And that's probably because we haven't spent as much time on that as we budgeted or planned on. Off the top of my head, that's one for sure. I don't know about some of the others.
Okay, I suppose I mean, altogether, yeah, the 48,000 is significant, but if you bump that number up to 72, that's
Yeah, some of
whatever that is, that's significant as well. So I'm just kind of cool. Yeah. But we're looking at a positive 51,000 on the bill.
Yes, so that's from two things. Look back in October, that actual payment there, $30,468. Remember that was the class action lawsuit that Kane County, Utah filed on behalf of all of the counties in the US.
Yeah, okay.
Stating that the federal government didn't meet their obligation to fully fund. That had to do with the sequestration and not fully appropriating the payment amount. And so our share of that class action suit came in at $30,000. Okay. Looking at expenditures, again, those are, we're not making any payroll happen today. So the salaries, overtime, and benefits, those are actual amounts.
So the overtime, we should get a big chunk of that back, possibly. COVID stuff or no?
That 18,000 included overtime that was related to,
So that 14,000 is above and beyond our COVID.
I wouldn't say above and beyond. Some of it was captured in the 18,000 reimbursement.
But that 18,000 was only for the month of April.
I wanna say it's
Like a month
Or
and a
May.
half.
month and a half.
Month and a half.
And that was for Daniel and I.
So part of March and then April, because we submitted at the end of April or in early May, correct?
We submitted it the end of last month.
And it went through as of May 1st, I think. So it's part of March, all of April, and it was a couple of deputies. And
Right, okay,
And
so
they're
Two
over.
different-
we still haven't submitted anything for the month of May.
Correct.
But shouldn't like Patterson's wages,
His overtime.
He's overtime.
that's all of his wages should have went to it though.
So I'll have to look and see exactly what we did with his wages. I know for sure the overtime. He was fully he was fully at the site there at the hospital checking people in, is that correct?
Him and Daniel were
He-
fully on for what, 2 months?
But wasn't he working with Daniel because of, he needed to be on light duty, was the reason why. he
Yeah,
was
that
on
was
that
part of
call.
it, yeah. Yeah,
But
and
he
he was willing
also-
to help out Daniel.
But the thing is that he did a lot of work, that's what I'm saying is just, I don't know if we can recover more.
So the guidelines, these are the interesting guidelines. The federal guidelines say they cannot have been budgeted as of March 1st. So when you look at our budget, we budget for people to work year round, no matter what they're assigned to do. We say we're paying these people 2,080 hours a year to perform work for Lake County. The guidelines say they have to be specifically in response to COVID-19 to charge their base salary to being reimbursed.
So-
That's the sticky part. If he was available to do other kinds of work, then it becomes very gray. What I'm reading too on the US Treasury Guidelines is the dollars, the next round of funding from the state may come out as a lump sum. Every county may get an allocation of $250,000. If we can't prove that we're spending it according to the US Treasury Guidelines, on December 31st, they'll claw the money back. So there is a lot more guidance that is being clarified now. In fact, that was updated. The US Treasury update came out just, I wanna say, a week ago. There's more definitions coming out on allowable uses of those dollars.
But
I like to err, and you guys, you know me pretty well, and Nikki and Jay, we like to err on the conservative, cautious side. I do not want to make the headlines of the paper saying we inappropriately spent virus relief dollars. I would much rather err on the side of making sure that that is allowable use of dollars.
It'd be legal use of tax or COVID money along with my legal meetings top in the headlines.
you weren't
You-
gonna go there.
Sorry, I had to throw that in.
No, I know.
I fired one across my own bow, right?
Well, I'm in agreement with Mr. Patterson. He was, I believe, on light duty, but he was dedicated, was assigned to that. So, yes, he was budgeted, but he was assigned to do the COVID, the OAM.
I'm almost positive that's all him and Daniel did for close to 2 months.
And the reason we can't charge for all of Daniel's because we get OEM dollars for him. So we also cannot double dip on funding. I'll double check what we did submit for Patterson's time, because we did obviously look at him because of his assignment, but I'll double check that.
So on the overtime, budgeted overtime went over by that amount. So there's other indicators, that COVID is only here a couple of months, but there's other indicators within the departments that spend the most on overtime. There may have been people off sick, took extra coverage in the jail, and the road deputies, that's where generally your overtime hits us the most. So
And
it's
going
hard to
back
capture just by the number there. Generally, there's some uniquenesses why the department will budget on their overtime.
And then going back, I know we've discussed this and I'm beating a dead horse, but the commissioners are paid, we've talked about this. But Brad pretty much had for 2 months virtually everything, and James and I were doing all the COVID stuff. Is there any way any of that could be wrote down?
I know you don't like my answer on this, so you keep asking it over and over again.
I'm just seeing if it changed.
General local government costs typically are disallowable federal reimbursements. I cannot count your guys' time even in our admin fee allocations when I'm clawing admin fee dollars from federally funded programs within the county. So that statement that says could not have been budgeted as of March 1st and has to be almost a complete reassignment of function and duty than what they're budgeted for. For instance, an example that they give is if we had jail staff that were almost, in excess, and we said, okay, we don't need your services in the jail, you're going to be our checkpoint person at the hospital, that time would have been chargeable. The fact that as a commissioner, we cannot relieve you of your commissioner duties, no matter what issue of the day you're working on, is why it's so darn gray for your salaries to be reimbursed on this. I'm not gonna say that there weren't some counties that did that. I don't wanna be a county that says that somewhere down the line,
they're gonna come back and.
Yes.
Because there will be audits.
I do believe there will be audits of this. Right now, it came out pretty fast and furious. The response is that way. I just,
And I'd rather,
Conservatively-
I'm with you, I'd rather err on the conservative side.
I guess where, because I can kind of see both sides of this, where on the flip side is we know there will be audits and they'll come back around and we have to account for every single one of our expenditures or bills and line items. But the other side is we've really felt it, I think, in this last month, in the last few weeks especially, where we've seen all the things that were put aside and all the responsibilities that we've had to county for all these other purposes. They were neglected. They had to wait their turn because COVID took precedence over everything in our lives for 3-4 months. And so I suppose in a way, I think if I'm, or my fellow commissioners say, where they're looking at is, they'd like to have the state foot the bill to a certain extent because this impacted us and our inability to serve our public in many other ways. That they struggled and suffered. And I've got a burn ordinance that I've got every fire chief practically in the county that has been wanting me to write for months since last year, and I had every intention of getting it done over the fall and winter and spring. And I couldn't over the spring, this last part of the winter, because we were completely preoccupied. So I guess I think it's the fact that we did, even though we have that budgeted for our salaries, and our duties aren't going off the table, it's just that they shifted entirely to deal with COVID. And our county suffered as a result, and I think that's kind of where my fellow commissioners are at. But I get where, we want to err on the side of caution, and we don't want to have to go back and say, oh, yeah, we misspent these dollars. I get that's a great concern.
So the impact of COVID for the normal county operations was very negative, all the way around. With your commissioners or anybody else.
Or anyone else.
It took a lot of time and everything. I strongly believe that we need to look at and check in. I know AOC said we should charge for those hours because they are COVID related. The guidelines say no. We might need some clarification from people further on up.
Maybe we could start with Rob with that, giving us some legal.
Well, he won't give you legal advice.
But really, AOC should be the one that has a lot of the guidelines on that. Really, from there, Senator Murphy, Wyden, Congressman Walden, they're the ones that put this in this budget.
Well, and I guess that's a good point there, and I think it'd be good if we had that discussion amongst ourselves as commissioners. Right here is what we're doing, and I don't want to keep beating Ann up about it or something. We're constantly asking this question. We're wanting to see how far we can go with this because it's concerned us all at one point or another. I think the clarification is needed, just so we're not putting her on the spot trying to make a determination
I didn't
on
mean to
this.
put him on us.
No.
Oh, no, that's good.
Well, what's always interesting, and I'm very supportive, but the local hospital got $4 million.
Mhm.
They were impacted by COVID. Our operations were impacted by COVID.
Right.
Everything. So on the scale of trying to find some equity there through hard times, if they come out with this minimum that the county will get $250,000, that's great, but still with those guidelines.
Right.
Does not give us the flexibility of being able to put those dollars to work.
And I think we should take it as a compliment, though, that we didn't go crazy and spend a whole lot of dollars. We were very frugal. We were very conservative with the limited dollars that we have, and we were very conscious of the fact, looking forward, that this was going to impact the state budget and our budget as a county. So we were very careful in spending dollars.
but we did spend a lot of time on something, and I don't feel that that was captured in our eventual bill to the state. And maybe it's not to be captured, but I think you bring an excellent point. We should bring this to Senator Merkley and some of those who actually wrote and approved those bills when it came down from the federal government, and look for a little bit better clarification from the state. We're trying to be conscientious about this and make sure that we're doing this appropriately, but yeah.
I'd have to just throw this out here, as far as organizations, the county, I think, did an excellent job, just keep kind of chugging along. You look at private business, you look at other organizations that were impacted drastically, truly drastically. So on the scale of who was impacted greatly, I'm very thankful that county government was not impacted very greatly at all.
Yeah,
on this scale.
I guess it just comes down to the fact that we spend so much time on this subject.
Well, I know
And that's
one,
where I think we're all kind of like struggling.
I know
Why
one
are we getting-
comparable county that's practically the same size as far as population goes, but I'm not gonna mention the name. They spent close to $200,000. And
We're reimbursed.
Huh?
And we're reimbursed, I believe,
I don't know how it works.
for a good portion of that.
I don't know
Okay,
if it
well,
works. That's the thing. But what I'm saying is, you know, we did 18,000. So we gotta,
So we were very proactive, and we were very, very understanding. We let employees work remotely. Nobody lost any time. Everybody worked, we kept the doors open to a level so that services still happen. You know, it doesn't always work that way. We're very blessed that we're budgeted reason to do that. Not every county done it the same way we do.
No, and we could still continue to be proactive, in terms of, well, I personally think that we should have laptops for every department. And I think that should be part of the bill going forward, because if as we move through COVID, everyone keeps telling us the state that the way we're going to do business in the future is gonna change. I think every department should have the ability to do work from home if it becomes absolutely necessary, and it should not impact county, the ability for county government to function. And so if they should have the ability to work at home if they need to, but there's a number of departments that just don't have laptops. And,
Or the work isn't work that can be done.
and that's true too, yes. There's a lot of work that
There's-
just can't be done at home.
There's a whole lot structure wise for us to
And
take under consideration at these new times.
And yeah, maybe we need to diversify a little bit and everything else, but anyway, that's.
So let's move along.
Okay, looking.
sorry,
You're fine. Oh, good discussion. Materials and services, that's an actual figure, so is capital. So the remainder of that column for actual June numbers are what we're here to discuss today. The transfers that we send out, whether it's to set aside money in reserves or for future spending, or to support an actual county operation outside of general fund. Right now, you can see that this, if everything held true as those transfers are budgeted and proposed, our cash balance at the end of today is approximately 1.659. We budgeted 1.7 million, so that's about a $40,000 shortfall starting July 1st. Like I said, the one unknown still is if OEM dollars actually hit my account today. I don't know.
so if they did, we'd be pretty close.
We'd
to
be
flush.
right on to what we budgeted, still handling all of these transfers. If we do move ahead, just the way this shows, again, our revenues for the year were 6.27. Our expenses are 6.61. That's a $340,000, expense over our revenues. So that $340,000 is why the beginning fund balance goes down.
Every year.
yes, if we maintain our spending patterns right now, and if our revenues stay kind of flatlined like they are with the Ruby Pipeline devaluation, we will continue to be on this trend. And we've seen our beginning fund balance go down for a few years now, not to this extent, but it's been going down a little bit.
Right.
So each transfer to 103 reserves, that's, capital projects. And then also we have a $150,000 reserve there, for future spending. The insurance transfer supports our liability insurance, also like property damage claims, unemployment claims, things like that. The vehicle transfer supports purchases, and there also is a reduction, though. We have a $30,000 reserve in that fund for future expenditure. The road department has a $30,000 support transfer budgeted. In the past, we've had discretion on what we do with those dollars. The fair board is for actual support of their operations, and in the past has been needed to balance their budget. This year, different choices been made, and it didn't necessarily need to balance their budget, but it's been historic support for a very valuable county asset used by the whole county. So, economic development, that support of SCOED's function, also other grants and projects and programs we do there, LCRI, and the KCC out of tuition payment. The Marine Fund requires a match, so right now that $1,400 is the cash match for the Marine Fund. The museum transfer is just support of their operations there for the Lake County Museum. The Schmink Museum has funding from prior owners. The landfill, I want to point out, is a kind of a highlight. We budgeted about a $240,000 transfer on the unknowns with, revenues, expenditures, fully staffed and hiring, and what that cost was going to be. As of today, the transfer is going to be about $172,000, so budgeted savings of about $67,000. Revenues came in higher than anticipated, and decisions made to kind of get by with as little as possible until things stabilize out there.
That is very good news.
Yes. The public health transfer, $122,000, that's by contract with the Lake District Hospital. The Veteran Services Fund is required to balance that fund with salaries and expenses that we see year in, year out. The reason for savings, remember we had we had salary increases, but then also the change in staff levels right there. So there are some savings there. We don't have to make that full budgeted transfer.
So the 10,000 is what we saved from staffing.
Yeah. The airport, there for a little bit, it was unknown if we're going to have to help cash match the most recent FAA grant. Amendments got not signed, but proposed just yesterday that we will not have to cash match that. And so that's zero. The building department.
Very good news. That's awesome too.
Yes.
See, there's two highlights in one day.
Woo-hoo!
I think we just broke a record for the last 4 months.
It worked. Last week I told him to get his head screwed on right. He did it clockwise instead of counterclockwise. Alright, guys.
I'm gonna
On vacation.
Sorry, hit you with another one. The building department is also a highlight.
Yep.
Permit income this year's been fantastic.
Oh, there we go. 3.
Yeah,
Three and go.
Not a problem. I'd set the bar. If he comes in anything less than that, it comes out of his wages.
That's almost a mic drop right there.
Walk out of the room.
Are you all in, Kenny?
Oh, Brad.
So-
Put that one on record.
You know how many times I've said, Brad?
Yes, I do.
There's usually a
Yes, I do.
for whatever they
If
call
we
it.
only had $1 for that,
The reason we do transfer some dollars there is nuisance is a general fund, required expense, it cannot come out of building income. So that $20,000 transfer is for nuisance expenditures.
God, here it comes.
But they
Go ahead,
flow,
Brad.
they flow together, Kenny Cooper nuisance sort of,
Yeah.
they flow together, don't they?
Seeing like that. You're still on probation, Brad.
That's good. Pay me out and get me out of here.
That's what he wants. Early payoff.
The railroad, we set aside money there to support different functions there. We did have to come through with a cash match on the Oregon Connect Tie project. Some of the language changed kind of midstream since that was originally approved. So labor could be used as a match, but equipment could not. So that changed midstream on the Connect Oregon Tie program. Plus, we received some ODOT match dollars for the Chrissy grant that we need to maintain that cash availability moving forward. So the fund transfer for 408's about 46,000.
Okay.
The general communication funds, the budgeted transfer for, as we've heard this budget year, hopeful to change out repeaters for next year. So that's your list of transfers from general fund as budgeted.
You said 46,000 on 408?
Yes. That'll be about the year end total. Budgeted 37.4, requires a little additional because of the Connect Oregon.
Got it.
I was missing that too.
So the only action consideration is if we want to change the transfer
Yes.
or do away with the transfer.
Okay.
Or you can leave it as is, knowing we'll start July 1st a little bit low and hope, with maybe OEM dollars catch up quickly. I don't have high hopes on current year taxes. I didn't look at my PILT number again. My PILT number, the PILT number maybe could increase a little bit next year. There's a few options there.
We might get more Corona dollars too.
Yes.
So we had some of this discussion the other day, Mark, I don't think it was in the meeting, or maybe it's on the phone. There's the only transfer that I see there that we could consider to not do, and that's to the road department, $30,000. The road department dollars came in, they put money into reserves this year, so, truly, to transfer $30,000 to the department that's able to put $500,000 into reserves. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I can stay with it or not. You guys can stay with it.
I'd like to leave it for now. Especially without the road superintendent here and without having that discussion with him prior. I'd like to leave it as is, honestly. But I hear you. I hear your point. Is there discussion on that, Mark? That's on
Well, I'm
41, 202.
kind of with the winners on this one, because we did put $500,000 in the reserve, right?
Right now, there's
Or right at it.
$1 million that will be transferred out of the road department, 500,000 to the operational reserve and 500,000 to the equipment replacement reserve.
So closer to $1 million.
It's $1 million.
Yeah, so I'm kind of with Brad on
I just kind of like to make sure that we're having that discussion with Kevin and he's part of that discussion.
that. So what we can do is talk it over with him and then make our decision. That's cool with you guys.
Well, today's the day.
Yeah.
Oh, we got.
Today's June 30th.
Oh yeah, geez, it is. I'm like months behind. I'm still COVID time.
Yeah. You've had a fever for a while.
I guess I'd like to make sure that we're doing our part in communicating with the department head and talking, in the end, yes, it is our decision, but, it's a historic transfer I can see where some folks are on that. I'm just not entirely, I personally do not wanna take that away. We can put it to a vote if you want, but, that's just where I'm at. I think that there needs to be communication with the department head, yes, part of that decision. And, I don't know if anyone, aside from myself, has had any discussion with him on that.
So Ann, where did we get the $30,000 savings? Do you know?
Who's budgeted?
Yeah, our budget transfer to the road department this year is 30,000,
Wasn't it 38,000 last year?
and I think it's 30,000.
It was 30,000? I thought it was 38.
Yeah, I must have missed it during budgeting time.
And historically, it's been about 250,000, correct?
And I'm thinking the year before it was 250,000, this is the first year we dropped it to 30,000. Cause I'm not sure we were able to even make the $250,000 payment the year before.
Yeah, see, I don't think we did make the 250,000 the year before. Maybe that's, is that where I'm getting the $38,000 figure?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Probably so. The 250,000 was up to 250,000 if the dollars were available.
correct.
And we can only transfer, federal dollars to the road department. We can't transfer general fund property tax dollars to the road department. So, but that was a decision made several years ago to try to preserve. The reason why we done the transfer was to preserve the reserves that the road department had, not get into those to carry those out further as revenues were falling. Revenues have come up, Oregon State, gas registration, small counties allocation, and we've been getting the SRS payment as level. So the origination of the 250,000 was to slow down the need to go to reserves. It wasn't an absolute guarantee.
Right.
And it's up to that amount as funds were available. So that was the purpose of the transfer. The purpose of $30,000, whenever you're putting $1 million in your capital reserve, in your regular reserve, I'm not sure we're saving anything. You know, the reserves are going up. And so that's where my mind is we transferred those dollars over the years to hey, save the reserve from being used at small.
Right. I guess, you know, I'm looking historically, you know, just going through this though, you know, I know that there was on some of the land closure and landfill closure and everything, we had $111,000 there was a cost there, but we couldn't really make that transfer. So I think we ended up with about 75,000 is what we ended up doing. But I think the 30,000, I think we'd still like to kind of put that forward, even though it's not the full amount that wasn't able to be transferred from the landfill. I think the 30,000 is still representing that original number of
So
the historical transfer.
landfill, just for my opinion on that, is we budgeted 75. If you're going to go over 75, if you come back before the board, talk to you, and I'm going to run over this amount.
I know, but there was still costs there, and so I know we may be getting into the weeds on some of this, but I'd still like to. I just would prefer not to change that transfer without the department head being part of the conversation, and he's not here. He's shooting oil today, and I'd like, I suppose, it to be more than just myself. I know I am the liaison, but I think I'd like to just have more of that conversation take place before we take that transfer away.
So the 30,000 is actually a $30,000 savings from the budget.
No, we budgeted to transfer $30,000 to the road department, period.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not a savings, it was a budgeted expenditure.
right.
And when we budgeted, we didn't anticipate this other revenues coming in, where I justify that. $30,000
$30,000 in the general fund.
We'll see.
And we show over a lot smaller numbers than that. A lot smaller numbers than that in the general fund.
Let me add to that perspective. The road department probably spent this year, I'll double check this number, but I think their expenditures are about $3.8 million. Their reserves total about 19 million. Our expenditures are 6.6. What are our reserves?
We have. Yeah, so that's where I'm going with it too, is like, we have no reserves, we have no room. When the road department's got 19 million, that's where I'm at.
If we wanna put it to a vote, that's fine. I'm not basing it on whether or not the road department has reserves. I know they have reserves and they do. That's good, that's a good thing.
Very thankful that they have that
Right,
over
and-
years of
And I'm glad that
good
we
decisions.
got
Yeah.
those additional dollars and
Yes.
that the road department was able to get fully funded this year on a lot of those other things, but I guess if you guys wanna put it to a vote, I think that it'd be probably proper on that. And if we wanna make that transfer or take that transfer away, that's fine. Support you guys in it, but I'm gonna have to just, my position is, I don't wanna take that away entirely and reduce that to zero without the department head being part of the conversation with the board, because we're supposed to be, one county, a family here, and I'm trying to just make sure that we're having a fully rounded conversation with the department heads and making these decisions.
So you did have a conversation after our work session that was gonna bring us back on this and let them know.
Well, we talked about other things and stuff, but yeah, we did. Yeah, it was part of our conversation. I just wanted to make sure that there was other folks talking and
Yeah,
stuff.
he never contacted me on it at all. I don't know if he contacted Mark after your conversation with him at all. I just, where I'm at is the transfers originated reserves and reserves.
So if we transfer it, then we would only be about 10 grand in the hole without the OEM money instead of 40.
Well, if we transfer it, we'll be about 40,000 short of our beginning fund balance budgeted amount.
Right, so if we don't transfer it, we'd only be 10.
That, yes.
I'll make a motion not to transfer that.
Second motion. Motion's been made and seconded. Further discussion. I seconded for exactly the reason I say is that transfers originated to preserve reserves. And this year, the reserves are doing quite well. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
So the transfers, and that will change your cash balance by $30,000 on the general fund side. All right. Mr. Berman, airport, key hanger lease.
Pretty simple, this is just a standard key lease we do at the airport. We
20-minute break. No, go ahead.
Jack Fawcett.
I'll do that one too.
Yeah.
He was on a roll this time. I got him to stutter right off. We'll get even later.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
The airport key hanger is just standard key hanger lease that we do with the airport. With Jack Fawcett is leasing hanger number 3 from us for $75 per month. 5-year lease. It's just the standard.
Entertain a motion. Mr. Airport.
I left my desk. I was reading it. I apologize, Dave.
That's what I did with that.
I'll make a
No, he
motion.
doesn't have it either. No.
I grabbed it.
You can have that.
I'll motion.
Mark.
They can start over, they can start over again.
No, you're fine.
I make a motion to accept the airport hangar lease with Jack Fawcett for $75 a month. I don't
Such
see
a-
that yearly.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the
Exchange, government.
contract between Lake County and Mr. Fawcett as presented. Any further discussion?
Not for me.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carried.
And just a little update with the airport T-hanger lease, Tom and I and Jim Bailey, we've talked to Jim Bailey about it. About this year, we're gonna look at raising the lease rent annually or monthly.
Okay, so that would probably have to go the same as our fee ordinance time, every 18 months. Check with Mel whenever that comes up. And I think that'd be, it's up to you guys, but that might be a good one to just sort of bring your advisory group sort of together. Sometimes little things.
Right, well, we've been talking about this for quite some time.
So, does most of the leaseors or leasees know that this increase is coming, or?
Yes, we've already warned, and in the lease agreement, it says they'll be notified 30 days before the lease will end to renew. So that being said, we got some that are coming up that are due. We got one, now this one will be 5 years and then we'll increase his. At that time, you gotta give them 30 days before the renewal of the date. So we're just gonna start the procedure soon.
And then you might tell them that we're increasing it to $125.
Well, we haven't,
Well,
100 to 125.
but we're pretty much averaging out with every other airport. correct?
Yes, throughout the county, or throughout the state.
So it's not like we're,
No, we're just not making this number up. We're just way behind. If they wanna go somewhere else, they're gonna pay a lot more than what they pay here. Thank you.
Thank you. Melanie Houdini, ODOT agreement number 34252. Rock and roll.
I was approved and awarded the grant that I applied for the replacement of a short bus. The vehicle must meet certain,
can you say that? Sure. Okay.
I don't know. So,
Ask Brad, he'll know.
what do you mean by that, Mark?
Nothing.
Just keep going, Melanie, keep going.
So, the seat limit is 12 to 16 seats and a minimum of 1 ADA standard or ADA securement station. And the total grant award is for $50,325. And I must follow the state procurement guidelines.
Entertain a motion on that shortly.
You know, it's medium size. It's not like the mini van and it's not the big one.
I'm waiting for you.
No, you go ahead.
What'd you say, Mo?
Okay, so we have, I'll move to accept the ODOT agreement 34252, total cost $58,325, which is for a bus that has less capacity than a full-size bus.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? The slang term is it would be a short bus. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. We have Mark's bus. Meeting minutes. We have work session 6-6, or 6-16, and regular session 6-17. We have a special session 1 too.
Well, I didn't get that on the agenda in time. I did the minutes, but
Okay,
I didn't do them until.
didn't notice it.
No worries. Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for a work session from 6-16 and regular session for 6-17, 2020.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded, approved minutes as stated. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Okay,
Can we take a break?
that's what I figured. You would want to take a break.
5 minutes is.
Money. 5 minutes, right now, 18 minutes to 12. Our next item, Mr. Williams, Governor Brown's face covering requirement. I don't believe it's an actual executive order, but it's a.
As so far, I have not seen an actual executive order. The press release stated that there would be a requirement. From the beginning of the I believe, let me see, Governor Brown announced today Oregonians statewide would be required to wear face coverings in indoor public spaces. Beginning this Wednesday, July 1, guidance applies to businesses and members of public visiting indoor public spaces. Face covering requirements are already mandated in 8 counties. So I guess this comes to us for several reasons. One of them is if it does become an executive order, what is our response going to be? And we have a public building with public employees that we manage, and
So what does that mean as far as public goes? Does that mean private businesses don't have to do it?
well, if they have a public visiting area or they have public coming into their business, yes, they have a public space, and there will be a mandated requirement if there is in fact an executive order that follows this. So
So I listened to a podcast yesterday, and I can't remember the judge's name, I apologize. But he said in there that under the 10th Amendment, the federal government nor the state can do those kind of mandates against the people. They can mandate public or state lands, like the post office, or that's federal, but like
right,
state-owned properties, and the feds can do fed-owned properties, but they couldn't enforce it on private. But then you have laws like no smoking in the bars and public places due to health. And so,
So as a general rule, we locally can have things less restrictive, but not more restrictive than what comes out from the state. The uniqueness of this is a mandate coming from the governor. So it's not an ORS, it's not the law or whatever, and I don't know what that means by mandate. What latitude there is around that. I do want to say one thing, we need to put signage up right away, we need to adhere to it right away by these rules, just because the risk factor of it, as far as risk for lawsuits and so on, because there's gonna be people on both sides of this. There's gonna be people that are very upset if people aren't wearing masks, and then there's gonna be people very upset because they have to wear masks. So we have to do the best we can to follow the guidelines, at least put the signage up. The enforcement side of it is in no way, shape, or form do I believe that we take on the enforcement side of it, other than public health has a mandate or a responsibility by ORS by their duties on inspecting some restaurants and things. I don't believe any local government should be required or should do the enforcement side of it. We risk the potential OSHA violation by people not wearing them, I would imagine. We also, if we do enforce it, does that give us some risk as far as trying to mandate something to somebody that says this is going against my rights? So I don't have a clear picture on it. I just know, not that I'm in favor of it, but as mandate comes down, we have to at least follow the guidelines and for the signage and everything, get that done. And I've always followed the recommendation to wear a face mask. It's up to the individual. So I don't have the answer. I just know that we have to follow certain rules. My personal views are going to be quite different of what I think I'm is where you get mandated as commissioner to deal with rules come down to.
So yesterday, I'm just gonna give you kind of an example of what I seen. So I went and got my stitches out, as you guys know. Well, I got clear to Lake Creek and realized I didn't have enough gas to make it to Climate Falls, so I had to turn around and go back. Anyways, I pulled in the gas station and all of the gas station attendants were wearing masks, right? And so I'm just sitting there and I was there for 8 minutes at the gas station. One guy touched his face after touching the nozzle, after touching the credit card, after touching several cars, touched cartons of cigarettes that he got out of the truck to stock the shelves. He touched his face 7 times in that 8-minute period. Then the guy that actually was waiting on me, he had a black mask on. And when he walked up to me, I seen that it was all mesh. It was like the fishnet mesh. And it's
We're gonna
like,
lose this meeting shortly.
it was like, it was a mask, but
Wasn't doing anything.
no. And I see, I want to respect people, whether they wear a mask or they don't wear a mask.
Absolutely agree with you.
And it's just like, you know, I was raised old school. You didn't ever sit down at the dinner table with a hat on. You always take your hat off for the Pledge of Allegiance, respect type thing. And so I would wear a mask in a business that wanted me to wear a mask out of respect. But on the other hand, as you guys know, I do not agree with mandate whatsoever. I think it's just one more chip out of our rights as citizens of the United States. And so,
So is a mandate just a suggestion?
Well, so far
Or
it's
is
just
it
a
an
press
executive
release.
order?
So far, it's just a press release. There's been no executive order that we have seen or come down from the governor's office. And I have not received confirmation that an executive order will be forthcoming. We assume there will be. But
So what are the penalties coming down from the state?
we're not seeing any penalties. We assume that OSHA will be the enforcement mechanism based on some of the other press conferences that I've seen.
As far as lawsuits on a county that doesn't comply?
Oh, well, in terms of not following, going along with an executive order, I have no idea, honestly, and our legal counsel isn't with us.
That's
I
gotta
just-
be that's no.
I don't
that's
know.
what I asked Jim.
No arrest or something.
So, I've been thinking about this all night. I didn't sleep much.
Let's do it.
Yep, and I
Yeah,
put a little
Marie.
thing out on the internet last night, and granted, social media is not necessarily the best place to gather public comment. But I wanted to hear what people had to say, and I received half a dozen phone calls because I put my phone number out there, I asked people to call me. I received a few emails, and I spoke to the senators and reps this morning on our conference call at 7. And I've really thought hard about this. This last legislature, when it came into session, I think our reps and senators were frustrated by something, and by this as well, that there was a number of very pressing, important issues that were not addressed by the legislature in terms of opening our schools up back again. And what are we going to do in terms of frivolous lawsuits when we open our schools back up and the students start going to school and someone gets sick, whether it's on a school bus or actually in class? There's no protection for our schools from those kind of lawsuits when someone gets potentially sick from COVID-19, and that is going to happen when schools open back up at some point. There's nothing to protect them. We were supposed to try to address that in this short session, but it never came forward. There will be another short session in July to look at that.
Mainly budget.
It will be mainly budget issues, so I don't know when they're going to address that issue. So that brings me to this, and it's along the same lines. And I was writing this up, and there's I just feel I wrote this down so I could keep my thoughts on track for the most part, but since this is an allegedly science-based response in terms of making people wear a mask, and OSHA is going to be the enforcement, where OSHA will enforce the face masks decree on our businesses, and they'll make sure that they are wearing those masks. Is OSHA going to simultaneously suspend their health and safety law concerns concerning oxygen deficit atmospheres? And what I mean by that is I'd like a copy of just one single scientific study done by OSHA documenting that wearing a face mask does not decrease oxygen levels. Because these are homemade masks for the most part. There's no way of telling how much they restrict our oxygen levels. And is there a study from OSHA that shows that they don't decrease below the 19.5% that you need and are required to have as oxygen levels for a safe working environment? You have to have 19.5% or above in order to have safe working conditions. You have to have that 20% oxygen. So are they going to suspend that rule when they require businesses that they are to mandate customers and private citizens that are not citizens of Oregon? They are United States citizens and residents of the state of Oregon. But the state is going to mandate this kind of restriction on our residents and that elected us. We work for them. We don't work for the state. And so I guess that's kind of what I'm struggling with, and it comes down to my final question. Will our business owners be exempt from the liability if someone collapses in their store from insufficient oxygen levels because the store owners are making them wear a mask? Is there an exemption for them and the liability that's put on those businesses? Personally, right now, I am not comfortable with supporting this kind of a requirement because there is a liability that the state has not given us any kind of response on in terms of what liability is on our businesses, what liability is on our citizenry and us as a county when we start supporting mandates that are not actual executive orders. Right now, yes, it could become an executive order, but right now it is not. It's been a press release. And that term required is a word that she chose to use. And finally, I'd also like to read you something, and I agree with this quote real completely. Quote, everybody should have the freedom, everyone should have the freedom to make their own decisions about their health, families, lives, and future, unquote. Would anyone like to know who said that? Governor Kate Brown on June 29th, 2020. In her press release, Governor Kate Brown issued a following statement today that was on the 29th, U.S. Supreme Court decision in June, Medical Services versus Russo. She said, today, the U.S. Supreme Court took action to uphold constitutional protections of women's reproductive rights and freedom. The court's decision today affirms that what we know, everyone should have the freedom to make their own decisions about their health, families, lives, and future, unquote. I agree with the governor 150%.
Is that what Angela Sanchez put on Timber?
This was a press release that was put out on every news channel in the state. So I agree with the governor on that. I think that they have a lot of work to do at the state. And I'm not willing to mandate anyone wear a mask. That's where I'm at. So I don't know if there's further discussion. I wanted to keep this real short, but I wanted to have an open discussion and dialogue with my fellow commissioners on my feelings and what my findings were on this. I am not against people wearing a mask. In fact, I would encourage people to wear a mask as it suits them and as they are comfortable. And I would never discourage someone from wearing a mask, nor would I discourage them from not wearing a mask. It is an individual choice made for your own families. It is something that I think the government is being put into a position of playing doctor. We're being put into a position of getting into a lane that really is not our own. And so That's where I'm at. I agree with the governor's statement that is regarding the freedom for the individual to determine what is best for their health and their families. That is where it should lie. And that is where it has historically laid for hundreds of years in this country. So that's where I stand. I actually stand with the governor on this. I just don't stand with her one particular statement in requiring and mandating private citizens of the United States.
So just to be clear, you stand with her, what
I stand with what she said
in her
in
quote
terms of the individual freedoms
should be
of the individual.
Yeah. I
And
agree with you on
I think that she's misguided in the one sense, and that's all. I would love to sit down and have a conversation with the governor on this. But so far, this is where we're at. If anyone has anything else to add, I just want to put that out there for a community so that they know exactly where I stand. And if they'd like to hear more, or they don't agree with me, if anyone at all disagrees with me, I would so very much love to hear from them.
I appreciate your passion and everything very much. I can't say that I disagree with you. We have roughly 100 employees throughout the county. We have department heads that are going to ask us, what do we do?
Correct.
Are we mandated? Do I tell my employees you have to wear a mask? I appreciate all the politics and all of that part of it because I am a politician. But we're tasked today with, we're going to be asked from our department heads, from our elected officials, from our employees, what do I have to do?
Right.
And we have to have an answer. And so that's what it all boils down to. I disagree myself with mandating for masks. So if we decide to go opposite of what the mandate is, are we now not going to get COVID funding that we just talked about so much earlier today that we should be getting this COVID funding? Are we not going to get other programs and everything that's coming down because we're going against it? Are we going to have a risk for lawsuits because of the person that says you're not enforcing the mask and it's a mandate and now I've got COVID because you didn't enforce it?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's lots of very emotional arguments about this.
Yeah.
And I agree with those emotional arguments. I think your point, Commissioner, about people touching and the quality of mask, whether it has the right air, are all very legitimate. But we're here today, June 30th, with a mandate tomorrow, with employees that's looking at us. This, what are we going to do? What do I tell my employees? And what is required? And that is the position I do not want to be in right now, but we are.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I was all prepared to go on a political spill, but I know that everybody's probably gonna be pretty close to the same place we are, but we have to keep business operating.
Correct.
And so, that is, we don't wanna have to, do some things. I sort of think I would like to, just off the top of my head, maybe come back this afternoon, have further discussion about this and try to find some guidance. I have a question, who provides the masks?
Mm-hmm.
Our employees.
This is one of the questions in our discussions with the senator this morning.
Correct.
Was that, are the business owners gonna be required to provide the masks?
Well, I'm narrowing it right down to us right now. I mean, if we provide them a cloth mask and it doesn't fit the guidelines, what's our risk?
Mm-hmm.
For somebody that's wearing this cloth mask that's getting contaminated and they're not using the right hygiene.
Or it restricts your oxygen to the point where someone's lungs
So-
collapse.
So
Yeah, but if you go with like those N95s, that's not the case.
Right, but we're not, I mean, we can't use N95s typically, I mean, we can't,
Yeah,
There's
but can you
not
go
enough.
back to the state and have them reimburse you through this COVID?
but
can't get 'em.
if they make enough of them,
They're available on Staples.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
So, this mandate coming down, what's the guidance on it? I mean,
there is none, it's so far, it's just a press release.
it's a, yeah, and so I'm really, if it's a mandate, it's obviously an unfunded mandate because people have to supply their own masks or the county's gonna have to supply them. Not only, and I'm just.
So that mandate
Commissioner, I'm just
says,
narrowing it down to our departments, from our road department to our annex up
Well,
north
so
to here.
the road department, we really wouldn't have to worry about too much because they're not in a building. Maybe if they were in the shop. But most of the time they're outside, so that wouldn't, according to that,
But where is OSHA gonna go? Oh, they've already been to the road department,
yeah.
right?
And I'm with you, man, I'm with you,
We're all in this together, we really are.
Yeah, so I,
but there's no way in hell that I'm gonna go against the Constitution, the 10th Amendment. I'm saying, I guess I'm hanging out there. And so,
Did you have something, Kate?
no, it's just, that mandate thing, I mean, that's a command or,
that's a command.
authorization to act. That's kind of how the definition rolls.
Right.
But have they, is that spelled out some? I mean, is
Not
that
yet.
how she's spelling it out?
No, it's so far, all we have is that press release, and it's been really hard to get any additional guidance from the
But
governor's
but
office.
in that in their verbiage, the state's verbiage, did they at any one time tell you to go back to the executive order that was in phase 1 or whatever? Does it say refer back to executive order blah 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 in
all we
phase?
have is the news release from yesterday.
That's it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, you know how that state works. So it's there's nothing in any verbiage out there in the cyber world says please refer back to Executive Order 71625 whatever.
So,
It just says
there's no-
mandate.
There is, well, it doesn't even say mandate, it just says requires.
Well,
It
that's
just says required. I know, but it doesn't say mandate, I'm just trying to, I'm
Well,
trying to be very precise with my
Oh,
words
yeah.
here.
it
That's
says
what I'm
face
getting at.
coverage requirements are already mandated in 8 counties. So that's where I got.
right, and they spell those out. They spell those 8 counties out.
Though they're not in here, they don't name them, but they do say that, yes, 8 counties.
There was
But
it seemed like there was a
We can
list.
call Lyle and ask him what those are.
she does say here, and I wanna give credence to the governor here, where she says modeling from the Oregon Health Authority shows that if we don't take further action to reduce the spread of the disease, our hospitals could be overwhelmed by new COVID cases and hospitalizations within weeks. Now, whether you agree with that or not, it doesn't matter. The choices every single one of us make in the coming days matter. That's what she says. She's identifying and acknowledging that it is individuals making choices that is going to make a difference. And I'd like that to be exactly where that stays. Our job is to educate people and make sure that the
But they
information
said
is
that
out there.
first go over. They said it in March 11th.
Right,
Well-
when it comes to us taking on liability is where I have concern.
Yeah.
But like Commissioner Winters points out,
Absolutely.
sorry, I have
No,
no
go ahead.
apologies, Melanie.
Finish and then I'll get to that.
Yeah, when it comes to, yeah, sorry, I lost my train of thought, it derailed, it's okay, I'll come back to it, the liability is where I have concerns.
Absolutely.
He had pointed out, that, there's liability for if someone does get sick and, we didn't mandate wearing a mask. But if someone's lungs collapse because we forced them to wear a mask, because OSHA came in and threatened us or whatever else, but OSHA didn't provide any kind of guidance or any kind of criteria where they could guarantee safe working environments for our employees. I have a serious issue with that. So I just don't think there's been enough guidance yet. And the governor's office has a lot of work to do before I'm going to take any kind of action on this board, other than conversation, which I think is really healthy. Melanie?
So, thinking like out loud, if it is mandated, would you guys allow the department heads to make appointments with the public? Cause I know like being sick right now and having to wear my mask makes me feel worse. So I can only imagine having a compromised system and having to wear it all the time. So if like we could navigate it by a compromise, like keep the department closed and then have appointments to do business, like how is that going to look if it is mandated and she does provide the guidance, is what I'm worried or curious about.
Well, for me personally, it doesn't matter what her mandates are
Or her guidance is, yeah.
In my mind, she's
Overstepping her.
she's overstepping her right to govern us in that way. And so,
But what about us though, I suppose, and
so
what are your thoughts?
I
I
my
hear ya.
thought, I couldn't go against what I believe is against our constitutional rights, because when we swore an oath to protect our people, foreign and abroad, or domestic and abroad. And I'm going against my own oath. I'd be going against, we're here to protect the Constitution and the people. And so,
So if someone comes in then and they feel like we should be wearing masks, or a department head should be wearing masks, if I'm going the wrong way, Melanie, you can always pull me back. I'm trying to jump into your thought here.
Okay.
Should our department heads be able to, I think the department heads are free to wear a mask if they feel like it's necessary. I'm just,
or they're free to not wear it, is what I'm saying. And if you have, say we have a constituent come into your office, and you say, would you feel more comfortable if I was wearing a mask?
Versus, hey, put this mask on now.
And if they say yes, I'll put my mask on, out of respect. But if somebody comes in and doesn't care if I'm wearing a mask, I'm not gonna wear a mask. I'm not gonna sit there and suffocate. You know, I got asthma, I can't breathe. And so, and plus it goes against our constitutional rights.
Well, that's
It
a
just
choice,
does.
that's a choice versus an order.
Pardon me?
So that's a choice versus an order.
Yes, I think we do it like we did before, is it's not a mandate, it's a guideline. We'll give you the information on it. If you wanna wear a mask, awesome. If you don't wanna wear a mask, awesome. I'm not going to pass judgment on you one direction or another, but you should have the choice to wear a mask or not to wear a mask. If you, and I hold no grudge one way or the other, you know, but according to that judge that I listened to, is really, when it boils down to it, only people that have been told they have COVID, positive COVID, should be mandated to wear a mask. Otherwise,
there's no, you can't prove that they're going to contaminate anyone because there's no evidence to support that they might be putting someone at risk.
well,
Is that where he was
I
going with
know
that
I'm a
argument?
broken record.
I'm
I'm a broken record, but how many things have we lost already, right? Like, you know, we can't go to church and hang out, we can't have our rodeo. Well, we know we're not gonna be able to have it to the extent that we wanna have it. You know, I mean, a plethora of other things.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right, but I don't understand on the like these protests. You know, was 6 foot distancing still a mandate? Is it any?
And they publicly said that the protesters don't have to follow the same guidelines.
Right, but then we all know how that went.
Yeah, look at
It
us
went
now.
from protesting to out of control. So how do you find the out of control part? They weren't social distancing. So how does the governor How does a governor?
So back to COVID, we know 2 counties that have a spike that's unreal. Umatilla and Union County. And so I would say, I agree with what you guys saying about the demonstrations, riots and whatever. Eventually, somebody's going to have COVID and they're going to have a spike because they're all that close.
Right.
It's going to happen. It becomes an enforcement thing. But I can tell you that on the enforcement side, those of us that are in government, we'll probably be the ones that end up with the lawsuits, and we'll probably be the ones that end up with the fines.
Which is the liability.
The people that are out there demonstrating, it's a great thing to bitch and whine about right now, because it's not right and it's not appropriate. But they're not gonna enforce it. That's the problem, is enforcement all the way around. But there's gonna be people come after government, and they're gonna come after what is considered deep pockets. So whatever we do,
Right.
and whatever we tell our employees, whatever stance we take, you have to be willing to take the risk.
Yeah.
It's gonna go along with it.
Well, I think you guys did a fantastic job at first go around. I mean, like you said, signage, the, talking, I mean, all that, yeah, think, I did see you. Injury.
So always trying to find a solution. That's what I try to do with it. Find a solution within reasoning. I'm concerned about providing masks. We don't have them to provide, plus they're gonna be substandard masks. The guidelines for wearing a mask are out there, so we can pull those down. People that have an underlying breathing issue or whatever should be able to probably get a waiver, I guess. What does that mean for them to not wear a mask? Are they gonna spread COVID? I don't know. Would it be, this is a legal question, but what if we had signage on all county functions and that masks are optional, and if that makes you uncomfortable, don't come in?
That sounded like something I would have said.
Instead of spelling it out required.
Well, I'm just, but we'd have to go along with our employees and everybody, also, but I don't know what kind of liability that brings. I'm trying to find the balance.
Yeah, happy.
Because of where, I'm very sensitive of where you guys are at and understand that. I'm trying to be sensitive of our exposure and our risk and being respectful to our employees also.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And we're having,
That's why I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning.
and we obviously have the start of potential spreading here within our county, not the county courthouse, within our county, of it spreading fairly rapidly. Well, now we're at 13, I don't know if we've had any more.
But the thing is,
15 now.
I gotta say this. We got all these cases when they start testing us. How many people have been walking around with this for months? And not to bash anybody, but why haven't they been testing our antibodies? What James has been preaching for months. And
And the Red Cross is now.
well, so yesterday, I go into the Red Cross thinking I can give blood because I have positive blood, which is very desirable. They would have tested me for free for antibodies, and so I went in there, and of course they don't. On Mondays, they don't draw blood until 1 o'clock. I'm there at 11:30, and I'm not gonna wait an hour and a half to do it, so I headed for home. But why aren't they doing that? There's so many things. I wanna protect our employees, I wanna protect the public. But I also wanna protect the rights.
Yeah.
And so,
I got another question too. This is just a future deal, but you know how we have that free flu shot here, every year.
The flu shot, yes.
Yeah. So what do you think you got? What's your thoughts when it comes to the vaccine?
It's up to the individual.
So there, yeah.
Always has been.
Yeah.
Um,
So why can't the man?
Could you imagine what would happen if they make that a mandate?
again,
Or an executive order?
again,
Well, I do.
I'm gonna stand with the governor on this. Everyone should have the freedom to make their own decisions about their health, families, lives, and future. That's it. Pure and simple. That is
That is an awesome.
a
I
historic
need to put that
principle.
up in my office.
So
with
I think you
Pete
should.
Brown underneath
I
it.
think the governor has a
Put
lot.
your arm
to-
around her.
I think we should give credit to her for that, because that's where I'm at on this. I put it on the agenda for us to have discussion on, because I know this is coming. It's not an executive order yet. I really don't feel that it's prudent to make a decision at this point on what we're going to do. But we should have this in our minds moving forward, once there is an executive order, if there is one, because it might just sit there at that. But we're gonna be having this discussion as we go forward, so I just appreciate you guys.
But it may not come down as executive order. It may come down exactly what it is.
Right.
Face covering requirements applied to indoor public spaces take effect on Wednesday, July 1st.
Then I haven't seen an executive order that I need to follow, so go ahead.
So what do you guys want me to tell the employees?
Well,
That's what I need to know.
Right.
You're our leaders and I've gotta get this out to everybody.
Right now, I'm not in a place where I'm going to require anyone to wear a mask. But I think that if people feel comfortable and that they feel like they feel better wearing a mask, they should wear a mask.
So Brad, you're the one that kind of brings us around to the liability and that sort of thing. And I'm 100% with you on that. But with all that in there, what is the right thing to do? What is the right thing for us to do?
No pressure.
The right thing.
And I mean, that's for all of us. I mean, I'm asking myself.
The right thing to do is to protect all of our employees for their rights and their health the best we can with what we have in front of us. We have an obligation, and the challenging part of that obligation is we could probably wouldn't be 50-50, but there's a fair percentage of employees that are scared to death of COVID, and they don't want it, and they need some protection. And there's some with underlying symptoms. So they're expecting us to have the best guidance and help them out, and still be able to keep their jobs. And then we have the ones similar to us over here is take on your own responsibility. If you want to wear a mask, wear it. If you don't, don't. And that side of it. To balance that together, it's a multi-million-dollar question, Commissioner. If I had the answer, I would have put it right out there at the first. This is what I think. This is it. That's next. Go on.
So would you guys be comfortable saying it's a recommendation?
If there's consensus of the board, I'll make a recommendation that our employees wear a face mask, and with a recommendation for the general public to wear a face mask. Would that be sufficient? And
that gets right back to, I didn't know way or know how do I believe we become enforcement of that.
No, that's why I say it's a recommendation.
based on the information that's being given to us by OHA on a daily basis, by the governor's office, because we're the board of the county. We're the guys that we're in contact with our legislature and constantly. So, and our public health director has we have an open door policy, but our public health director takes precedent over all these things, especially in matters related to COVID. So if she wanted to get information out to the public, we're definitely an avenue you can do that. So based on the information before us, there seems to be a recommendation for a face mask. So we make a recommendation.
for the public to wear a
But
face
I wanna
mask.
make it clear, it's not mandatory.
I'm not making a mandatory, so there's nothing mandatory about it, no enforcement, because we can't enforce it.
You just mentioned a person that if our public health person was here right now would say everybody should wear it. I don't want to speak for you,
No,
but I'd almost guarantee you is that she would follow this and say, everybody wear a mask.
Did she say that one meeting?
Mhm.
Yeah, she
but
did. I
again,
remember-
it's
I
us
remember
that have to make the decision, so we say, okay. We're gonna make a recommendation to the public, because we're elected officials.
Go ahead now.
Can I be a pain? And I'm not saying I'm going to do this, but hypothetically, what if someone is a high risk, a person of high risk, and they refuse to give service to someone because they're not wearing a mask? I'm just trying to think of like what could happen.
You mean here?
Yeah, like say like, I'm like, well, I have an autoimmune disease and I want you to put a mask to come in, put on a mask to come in my office. But like with
I
me,
think you could ask them, and if they didn't want to, you go find somebody else that will wait on this.
So,
okay, cause people are gonna
That
ask
would
me
be
these
my-
questions.
My thought.
People are gonna ask me these
So,
questions, I just need to
let's
know
get
what's.
back to the enforcement side. If we posted and we agreed to that, we're recommending to follow the requirements put on by Governor Brown. We're not mandating, we're recommending for you to follow those guidelines. And then, I think we're covered with liability, that we're making that recommendation, we're not the enforcement side of it.
But I don't wanna say requirements, I wanna say we recommend,
That's all he's saying.
but he said follow the requirements, and if you
Yes, I
say
am.
follow the requirements, she requires you have to do that.
We're
You see what I'm
following
saying?
the requirements with a recommendation.
Basically, that's what I'm saying, yeah, you nailed it, James, is, it's basically saying it is required, we're not enforcing.
Or state suggestions. Either one.
It's not an executive order, it's a press release.
Yeah,
And
but
granted.
she said last Friday that she wasn't gonna do this,
Mhm.
and then on Tuesday she does do it. I'm not gonna.
Well, on the
that's
same day
another
that came out, there also came this other press release where she recognizes that people have individual freedoms to choose what's best for their own lives and families and health and safety.
I think that needs to be public too.
Well, I tried to make it public as I could.
More
I think I
months.
said it like 3 or 4 times, so, and yeah, no, I hear you, and it's true. That was the same day. Different issue. Different matter. It was her commenting on a US Supreme Court decision regarding a matter in Louisiana.
I don't know what the matter was.
So, that was her decision, or her comment
kill-
on that.
You can kill babies, but you can't wear a mask.
Well, it's just,
Sorry, you
she
knew
did
it.
say everyone, she didn't specify a particular group of people, she said everyone.
But it was
should
on
have
the
that
abortion
freedom.
case.
Correct. It was a matter that came before the
Sorry,
Supreme
that's a whole
Court.
different rabbit trail,
That was medical services versus Russo,
which is abortion.
down in Louisiana. Correct. So, that's just,
A little bit south of the border.
So what are you guys saying?
I'm still about 90% lost. I'm almost wanting some, where you were going, I wish legal was on, just for debate right now.
right.
I went to my phone to see if he sent me an email.
I wish that, Jay was here on our insurance and liability, the CIS insurance, what they would recommend, you know, on the risk management side of things.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
Maybe we should just postpone this conversation.
any kind of decision, yes.
Until we can get everyone together and it is mandated officially.
Yeah, we have a commissioner who's 90% lost, so I don't think that it's appropriate to
But
make any
that's
decision
already
right now.
public information.
I mean,
That's already public information, James.
Yeah, but don't you have to put, Melanie, you have to put something out by tomorrow?
Wow,
No.
No.
I don't
Is
have
there
to
a-
put something out, but like, I think people are gonna wanna know. There's gonna be lots of,
Well, yeah, I'm already
lots of
getting it.
questions from employees and already
Right,
getting
and I think,
questions, like,
you know,
how
they
do I
have more
handle this?
discussion to have with us.
Right.
So,
And so we've got to pretty much
So Mel,
come up with policy.
since she's a department head, I'm gonna ask her.
Okay.
And she's got immune deficiencies.
Yeah.
Possibly. I don't wanna violate.
no, I
that.
haven't autoimmune disorder.
I just need to shut up.
Okay, so we're,
So what do you expect from us? What do you want? Can you see both sides?
oh yeah, I definitely see both sides, and that's why I don't,
So would you be cool with us saying, if you wanna wear your mask, go ahead? And
Well,
if
right
you
now-
don't wanna wear it,
yeah, right now I'm sick, so I'm trying to be respectful of everybody and wear my mask. But like, it's
not with COVID.
Not with COVID, I'm negative. But
Sorry.
We're in Louisiana right now. We've
But
got
you
so
know,
far
like-
south.
as somebody that's compromised, I'm not scared of coronavirus. But I don't think it's fair for me to speak for everyone else
No,
because
I'm asking of your department.
I'm pretty healthy regardless, and so I'm not worried. But I don't think there's a one size fits all answer for this. There's people who have strong feelings about masking and not masking, and I don't know how you give one answer to make things work. I
I
don't know.
don't think there is one answer, just like the governor can't paint every county into the same box.
Well, yeah, and we only have 8,000 different opinions to balance
Yeah.
when we make our decision, but you know, I mean, it's a substantial amount of people to take into consideration and viewpoints that we are trying very hard to be transparent and trying to listen to all the concerns coming before us. Who have thought that is,
No, I'm just letting you know, I got claims for the first tree out there in my office is outside, I'm not wearing a damn
But I think you guys,
I'm not wearing a mask.
you guys should offer.
Whether she mandates it or not, I am not wearing a mask.
well,
I think you guys need to offer the department some flexibility to manage around it, and like, there's gonna be so many diverse people like within a department that we
Right.
need to let them manage
and
to
that's,
make it work for their department.
Individually.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm kind of at the
agree.
recommendation, and
yeah.
that's, I think that's where we're.
But then it goes back to, I mean, do I have masks on the counter?
So you're bringing the next place I was going back to is the public coming in.
Yeah.
That's under the impression that it's a mandate, that it's a requirement. And they come in, because our doors are open, and they're very upset that the person they're sitting across doesn't have a mask.
I think it's setting us up to some liability.
Well, that's why I say, do you want us to wear a mask or not when they come in? If they come to his office, when they walk in the door, that's the first thing they ask him, would you like us to wear a mask? If they say yes, put a damn mask on.
Well, that's what I'm saying is, so they don't, yeah.
Sorry.
So I get back to is we post and we say, we recommend you following the face covering requirement.
Right, and bring your own mask, because we're not going to necessarily supply those masks to you.
We recommend you follow it.
Yeah.
But we're not enforcing it.
But what if like a member of the public comes in, I'm just playing devil's advocate, and Ken Cooper's like, I'm not wearing a mask, even if the public asks him, and then we get a.
I think we're public servants, and if they want you to wear a mask and in your line of work, you should, out of respect,
Okay.
put on a mask.
Okay.
And as soon as they walk out the door, you take your mask in and gasp for air. Off.
Okay.
Yeah, but is their mask, you know, with
I
their
just-
mask on their face, you know, and I don't have one, you know,
So,
is the protection on both sides coming in or going out?
so my next question is,
That's up to you, man.
No, not just what you said, I mean, I'm going with what you said, you know, if they, out of respect, they asked me to put a mask on. And I say, well, you're already wearing a mask, why would I put one on? Because you're protected from
That-
going out and from
it's just
going
like-
in.
So,
It's out of respect, you're just doing it respectfully.
so my next question is, does a sneeze guard or a plexiglass suffice and not have to wear a mask?
I was told yes. I was told yes.
Give me some saran wrap for my office. I'm hanging up from the ceiling.
I seen a guy, a video of a guy wrapping his face in saran wrap before he went into Walmart.
Oh my gosh.
He must be a genius.
Genius.
All I
He got
can
a
say
big old
is
neck on him.
today, this day and age with my generation, I don't want any more oxygen starved folks than we already have.
No.
Hey,
That is no kidding.
Not all millennials are bad.
No, it's
Well, you both are millennials, so. And Kevin.
Yeah.
He looks like he's 60. He's a millennial.
there's only a few of us now. It's
Okay.
really being logical about it. It's not getting that. We're trying our
All
very
my
best
kids are your guys' age,
and we're
so.
just trying to sort through all this. And honestly, I really feel for our public because the level of craziness in our society right now has reached a new high. And all the way around. That is not a partisan statement by any means. And I just wanna make sure that we're having this conversation ahead of time.
Well, there's already businesses, my daughter, grandkids experienced in adjoining county at McDonald's, not allowed to go in because they didn't have basements. Or on that Saturday evening, county the same size as ours, a little bit bigger landmass. Not naming the county.
You named the business, so.
Yeah, and there's only one McDonald's in that county.
I stop there. No, I'm just kidding.
It's
So-
right next to the road.
So
That's
you know, but they were able to go to the shop in that area that was all organic and they didn't have to wear a mask in there. Was able to get the biscuit and stuff there. Anyways, I digress, but,
Well, that's all I got on that. I appreciate you guys giving thought to it. I'm not comfortable making a decision myself right now. I know this is our chance to kind of talk publicly and allow the public to see the discussion going on between us, but it's just, I think maybe now we're started to reach the point where we're repeating ourselves.
Well, I can guarantee.
You're running the meeting, Chair. So, I mean, if you wanna move on,
we may come back to this because.
Do we have more after this, or is this?
there's just one last item.
No, because I think that this may force us back into this, because I don't know where he's going, but up next, the ever popular declaration of emergency discussion by James Wood.
No one else gets their name put on the agenda when they put items on there. By James Williams, okay, alright, yeah. It was,
Brought forward-
I
brought
sent an
forward by
email to
James.
Melanie and I asked if these things, yeah, brought forward by me, yes, yours truly. The Lake County's current declaration of emergency. It's been in act now for months, and I'm just curious where everyone's thoughts are on that. I'm not sure we're actually in a state of emergency at the moment. Just looking at it, I think that we could declare one when we had a major emergency, but when we declared this, it was under the impression that we were gonna have 100 deaths by the end of March.
And we thought we were a hot spot.
We thought we were a hot spot, and I'm just not sure where we're at. We haven't had, to my knowledge, any hospitalizations. Most everyone are quarantining themselves at home appropriately. And people are getting better. It's not just a growing number, people are getting better and going back out into continuing on with their lives. And they also are carrying the antibodies now in their system. And so it's not just a growing number, the people are getting it and they're getting better. Now there's a lot about the virus that I don't understand, and I'm not going to pretend that I understand it because I'm not a doctor and the medical professionals are working on this. I'm putting a lot of faith in our public health director and our physicians. I guess where I'm at right now is, do we allow the emergency declaration to continue?
And are there good reasons to allow it, to have it continue? Or should we pull back on that and wait for an actual emergency, to make
What-
another declaration?
What about the financial impact on the community?
That's
Is that part of the emergency?
And that's, I suppose that's what I'm kind of concerned about, is how that affects our businesses and our dollars that we're advocating for, and so are those, is that a legitimate concern? Does
Would
that
that create
change
a loop?
anything?
Would that create a loophole if we applied for money and they said, well, you're not under emergency in that date? You see what I'm saying? That would be my only concern.
Yeah, I get that. I like where James is going, and off the top of my head, I think we delay it for a little while based on that we've had an influx of COVID cases. And with the influx of COVID cases, if we were to become one of those real hotspots, Lake County becoming a real hotspots, that we wanted to require extra testing and extra other stuff, being under the emergency order, I think would be beneficial. And so, agreed, that's the only reason why I'm thinking that we revisit this, but leave it where it's at now, because we've had some.
We could set a date, 2 weeks from now, revisit our next meeting.
Next meeting, I agree.
Because we haven't had any discussion on this for months, and it's just been, that emergency declaration has been sitting there. I think our public has had a lot of questions about it, and I think it's only appropriate that we address it as a board and maybe express why we still have it in act.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought that forward, because of, for me, I think it's appropriate to wait till the next meeting, but we need to keep that as a discussion. We just have a weekly staff meeting, we slow down
And
on
we
that
stop, yeah.
and everything.
Went back to
And
regular.
so let's keep this, make sure that this is on discussion. If we don't make a decision at the next one, let's carry it for discussion for the next one. I think that's very
Are
important.
you gonna be here tomorrow? Or are you heading out for your vacation?
I was going to be gone, but you got going.
No, I was just thinking that we can make the decision on the previous topic tomorrow.
If there isn't an executive order, I can talk to Melanie and see if we can do a special session, even if it's by phone. We can.
It's hard, I don't have service, but
Oh, okay.
I would
So
like to be part of that, but
Yeah.
you'll know more by.
We won't do it without you. How about
And I'm gonna have to probably go back and forth, a little bit, I'll get service, so. We'll make it.
I'm never going to say we're gonna mandate. The most I'm gonna say ever is recommend. That's where I stand.
Okay.
Period, no matter what kind of information. So, that's the most restrictive I'll ever be on this deal. So,
I'm glad you said it on this bill, because there's other things we.
Yeah, I mean,
Already
I'm-
done mandates.
well, I'll probably still be the same, but.
Yeah, we'll have that discussion when we get it.
Yeah, I better get them out here. Okay, so, the only other things we have is, if there's any department updates, liaison updates, no executive session. Liaison updates.
I have none other than what I've given.
Yeah, the railroad, appreciate you guys working on that. We need to beat that up.
I'm glad you brought that up today.
Yeah. Don't be afraid to, get a hold of Toby individually, give him a call. I mean, it's a commitment out of us, and, I'm very proud, appreciate that you mentioned that if we don't do the improvements to the rail line, we have two industries sitting here that could be at jeopardy. The added industry is Red Rock, but I've always been one that fights very much for job retention. So, that's exciting.
We can't afford to lose anything else.
So I do meet with, the partners, Fair Board, the Extension Service, the Cell Committee, the Roundup, as a Fair Board, we're meeting this evening. We'll have more discussion about what fair can or may or won't or will look like. We're all wanting to make sure that some
That's
level,
at 6 o'clock, right?
I believe that's what I
Do you care if I pop in?
don't mind at all.
Yeah. I'm gonna be here.
So
Oh,
Just-
I'm gonna have
just-
a legal meeting.
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
It won't be a commissioner decision though.
There won't be, we are not making any decisions.
Yeah, you'll just,
Well, I've been whipping post for 3 weeks, I'm just saying.
yeah, well,
James goes on another matter,
Yeah.
told me to let it roll off my back, duck, water duck on the back of my head.
Yeah.
And I said, this duck doesn't have any feathers to roll off. It was all good.
that's more politically correct, I just want his head screwed on. It wasn't about his meeting. So anyways, on that, I think that you guys are more than welcome, because I think there's misunderstanding out there amongst the community that the commissioners are the ones that makes the decision, whenever it's the fair board, and it's the sale committee, and it's the extension service, and it's the 4-H, and everybody that's involved.
But they have the same problems, liability and all of this other stuff.
It's, you get into some of the same discussions. One of the things with the outside, we're able to do 250 people, and you do that. We did find out you can do it by segments if you have ingress and regress and restrooms in each segment. So there's options out there. But anyways, that goes on tonight. I think I'll stop on liaison there. Okay, you guys good to adjourn?
Yep.
Adjourn at